Fever from Group B. These two teams, they fought hard in the playoffs. They've made their way through 2 rounds, 2 best-of-5s, all to get to this match right here, right now, where we have a very special TriCast for all of you. As you can see as well, good evening, everyone. My name is Ferris. I'm joined by Potatoes and Swifty for this one. And fellas, are we ready to crown our champion tonight?
We are. These teams have been very consistent over the course of the season. I think two very dominant teams, and it's going to be an exciting match. I'm really hoping this one goes to game 5. Always love a close series. And I think these teams can deliver that.
Yeah, I got to agree with Freedom Potatoes here. These two teams, I've had the pleasure of casting alongside Ferris for these teams, and seeing what they can bring to the table has been really, really impressive throughout the season. I think this is truly going to be a clash of the Titans. Really looking forward to see what these guys are going to bring to the table. Hopefully, like Potatoes said, if we can go to game 5, that's always fun. We'll never root against a Silver Scrape, so we'll see how tonight turns out.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. We do not hate Silver Scrapes here. It would be an absolute banger. The best way to end off the season would be that way. Before we get started, and in a couple of minutes, or whenever that does end up, whenever it does come onto the screen, we're going to have our MVP awards and some awards to give out for the season here in Titan Conqueror. So we'll talk through those when those do arrive, and we will shout out all the people who got their awards, shouting out the fantastic, talented players that are performing in this league across all the weeks that we have been up and live. And I think we are transitioning to that now. And here we are. So let's see it. We got some cards in front of us. We got the first team, second team, third team. And congratulations to the players who are on your screen. Let's get your reactions here, Potatoes. First reactions to seeing these on screen.
So, something I immediately noticed is we've got 2 Syndicate Coke players up there in the number 1, the first team, Fourth Espada and Solo Mason. Going to be, I think, major players in tonight's game. No one from Omega on the first team, but Sailor making an appearance there on the second team, and yeah, I think a lot of players that you might have expected to make it to the finals, not here, disappointingly, but they've put on a great showing all throughout this season.
Yeah, I'd like to make a call out, I guess, to that, right? Potato's point that, immediately we see Solo Mason, we see Fourth Espada up here in the first team. I know I had the pleasure of seeing Solo Mason absolutely deliver in casting a series earlier in this season. I think Solo Mason is going to be a very pivotal role in this series to come tonight as we cast it, as we get to see the series unfold. I think that, however, though, to comment on Omega Gaming Fever, maybe only seeing Sailor here on the second team, I think it speaks to the sort of different play styles. I think Solo Mason may be, one of the more solo-focused carry players on this team for Syndicate Coke, right? A big pivotal sort of catalyst for wins and for them as a team, rather. And I think Omega Gaming Fever is maybe a team that's going to be more evenly spread out and paced. And looking at the rest of these players, we also see Frozen Spuds here on the second team, and then I believe that's Gerardo Gaming, Iota, for basically the entirety of the third team, which is very
third team, wow.
You never get to see that. That's very cool. Congratulations to them, and just congratulations to everyone on this list. It's been an excellent season to cast.
Absolutely. I want to give a shout out to the most valuable player, DOV Knights Rutenium. Fantastic season that the DOV Knights had. They did fall short in the semifinals to the Omega Fever, who we are going to showcase today in this grand final best-of-5, but very dominant in the regular season as well. They won their first playoff series, and they had a very hard-fought series against Omega Fever as well, going all the way to 5 games. So shout out Rutenium for getting that most valuable player, all of Dorado Gaming Iota for making that third team like we pointed out, and also whoever it was to make these gorgeous graphics here, these cards for the first team. That is absolutely wonderful. And that amazing card for Rutenium in the top right there, DOV Knights mid laner. So those are your awards for the season. That's your MVPs and your runner-ups. And let's talk about these two teams now. What kind of runs they've had towards the spot they are in now. We'll start with Syndicate Coke here. Dominant regular season here, Potatoes, and relatively convincing series wins in their playoff series leading up to this final.
I would say of the two teams, I think I lean a little towards Syndicate Coke being the favorites here. They had the most dominant regular season out of pretty much any team in this whole league, and they've had very convincing playoff wins. Omega Fever also very solid throughout most of the regular season, but I think faltered a little bit towards the end. But they managed to pick things up majorly in playoffs. Taking out teams that were on paper rated above them, and now making it to the finals. So that'll be cool to see.
Yeah, I'm excited in the same sort of vein that I think you've got the sort of, titular really good team from the regular season, performed very consistently, has a lot of strong players in a lot of different roles, that being Syndicate Coke, and then Omega Game Fever, which may have surprised a few people by showing up the way they did in playoffs. But the way I view playoffs is sort of that teams will show up and teams will not show up. I think you can be surprised a lot of the times by the teams that don't necessarily perform the way you maybe thought they would, and a lot of teams that know how to step it up and know how to put their foot on the pedal when it matters the most. And to me, when I think of Omega Gaming Fever's playoff run, right, their end of season into their playoff run, that's sort of what I think about. And I think that makes for just a great storyline and probably what is going to be a really cool series tonight. I think a lot of people are going to expect Syndicate Coke to be performing maybe not significantly better, but I think they're more willing to accept a clean performance out of Syndicate Coke, and I'm thinking people might be surprised at the show that Omega Gaming Fever is going to put on for us tonight, and I'm really excited to see so.
I would say and go as far as to say a lot of people probably didn't think Omega Fever would be this far in the playoffs. The fact that they're here in this grand final right now shows the level and that they can bring here in the playoffs, upsetting a opponent like the DOV Knights, like Tilt Esports World Enders, who they beat in that quarterfinal matchup, who we thought it was going to be TES to advance to that semifinal matchup against DOV. Time and time again, as you can see now the bracket on your screen, it has been Omega Fever as the underdogs in these series, but time and time again, they show us that they are here to fight. They are here to win the whole thing, and they just got to win one more series. So we do have some substitutions, though, that we do have to mention here from the main rosters of at least Omega Fever. We do have, I believe, Maze playing in the jungle from what I've heard in place of Sailor. I'm not sure if that's going to be for the entire series or if that is just going to be a one-game substitution, but a little bit of things changing around there. And also for Omega Fever, they have a lot of different players playing on their team. So there you can see Sailor will be in that starting lineup in the jungle, and it will be Maze and Debay in the bot lane. Debay being that normal AD carry player, but this time into the support role, Potatoes.
Debay has subbed to support before in some of Omega's matches, and I think they've managed to get wins. So it seems like definitely a player who is proficient in that role, happy to go there and make a difference.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting seeing, right? Not only a sub in a finals series, but multiple subs in a finals series. I'm curious to see, guys, as this night unfolds, whether or not this is going to be a bane or a boon. I think on one hand, obviously having your core 5 roster playing in a finals match where you've practiced the most together, been scrimming the most together, is obviously going to be, as helpful as possible, but maybe you're going to be throwing people off by bringing out sort of new synergies, new comps, new strategies into the mix with 2 more subs. So interested to see how that plays out.
Absolutely. Interested to see how it all is going to go down. Are we going to get Syndicate Coke coming out strong out of the gate, winning a first couple matches? Will it be Omega Fever to come out strong and strike first, catching Syndicate Coke off guard? I would have to imagine, based on what we've just been talking about, how we didn't expect Omega Fever to be this far into the tournament, into the season. Syndicate Coke is definitely going to be giving them their respect. So I imagine they have been prepping hard. They've been looking at Maze's champion pools. They've been looking at Debay, differences between Debay on AD carry and on support. But I'll ask you guys here. We'll start with Syndicate Coke. Who are the players to watch in this series? We'll start with you, Potatoes. I know it was Swifty who is alluding to the fact that Solo Mason very important for this team, but who are you specifically looking for to be that big player in this series?
For me, I think it's Paka Paul that I'd want to look at. Paka Paul in their previous series against Dorado Gaming, I think really got the upper hand early game in the jungle, very consistently, and was able to push that to a win in many of their games. The other player I'd like to kind of shout out is Espada, someone who I think is very effective at kind of weathering the storm. Not necessarily always a highlight player, not the flashiest, but makes consistent good plays and and has able to play the weak side out very well, absorb pressure, let the rest of the team get ahead that way.
As we do see now on our screen, it's just me and Potatoes here. We're gonna get that fixed up. Swifty's lost in the void right now, but we'll get him back on screen. As we now are into draft here. Swifty, we got our first couple bands. What are you seeing right off the bat?
Seeing right off the bat, Lilia, which I believe is one of the most picked champions in Conqueror this season, being taken right off the table. Things like Zeri, Syndra, Swain. Okay, these are standard sort of power picks. It looks like a lot of sort of mid lane picks are being taken off the board early, particularly for the side of Syndicate Coke, especially if you're considering if Zeri is going to be, a possible mid lane pick. Curious to see if they slam something for retail road. There's going to be a potent pick for them.
Seems like both teams. Seems like both teams prioritizing, a lot of bans toward the mid lane, which is not always the most common. And there we see the Ornn picked up. Interesting fact I saw is that this is the highest presence champion for both teams. It's usually either picked or banned against them. So I'm very surprised that it slipped through. But I guess both teams wanted to see if they could grab that up early, because it's a really nice late game insurance policy, offers a lot of engage, and can be pretty strong in lane too.
The Senna lock in here, hey, you might have been about to allude to that there, Swifty, is a big pick for Maze, and they're going to lock in the Tahm Kench as well. So we were actually talking about before this series started, Maze and Debay, they love these fasting Senna strategies, Swifty. We're going to see that here.
Yeah, we are going to see that here. Love to see us fasting Senna. Curious to see whether or not they possibly answer with something in the bot lane here. Okay, we do see Varus coming out. Curious to see if they pick a support here to correspond with it. That's going to be Nami. Nami Varus. The Varus can famously go poke Varus, famously go on hit Varus. We'll probably, I think, be able to tell which one it is as draft unfolds here. But yeah, curious to see what's next. It is Poppy. I know that Potatoes over on our team is I guess known that we like to flex that Poppy. I think it's a good flex in the jungle. I think it's a good flex in top, and we're going to see My Game Fever start to ban out jungles in response.
Go ahead, Potatoes.
It's we do indeed like flexing the Poppy, and I think that is something that's still an option for Omega Fever. Although when you see the Senna paired with a Tahm Kench, that's almost always going to be together. It offers so much sustain in the lane to get through, get the scaling online, and just become that unkillable front line. We've seen the Shyvana band away. That's a pick that Syndicate does like quite a bit, and the LeBlanc as well to finish things out for that second phase of bans.
Targeting that champion pool of Paka Paul. Hasn't picked that champion up yet. It's going to be Sailor to grab that Viego for themselves. Is always going to play things like the playmakers, things like the carries as well. They can play both. This time, I like this pickup though, because you have the Senna. She's going to take a long time to ramp up. You need that other DPS carry on your team. Viego can be that. They just need some magic damage in the mid lane to round it out. As we're seeing a Warwick here, fellas. Swifty, what do you think about this one?
I saw Warwick. I was waiting for my second to say something about it. I think it's an interesting pick. Is what comes to mind immediately is the word interesting. Quickly, just to touch on the Viego, I think the Viego is really, really great here. I like the Poppy because like Potatoes had said, it's possible flex with support, but it's also a flex jungle top, right? Then they lock in the Viego, you sort of know where it's going. And the response being Warwick is really, really interesting. Warwick is incredibly powerful in the early game if utilized for his, steroided movement speed and ability to take out targets very, very quickly, very, very fast. However, he's not a champion that scales particularly well, particularly in competitive and coordinated League of Legends. I think in the hands of Pakapal, I'm very excited to see what this is, but this is going to be a sort of feast or famine pick for me. I think if Pakapal can pull this off, this is a big flex for him and sort of a tone setter of a pick for this series for sure.
I think both teams have got really solid comps here with a lot of DPS, a lot of scaling. So they're probably going to be looking to play a lot for that late game, and that jungle matchup in particular is one I'm going to be curious to see how that goes. Both very strong dueling champions that can Viego wants to play for the resets. Warwick kind of just wants to stick onto targets and sustain through. So a lot of healing going to be being done by both junglers, and we're getting a pause right off the bat here as we get into game.
Classic. The pause to start us off, keeping the suspense building for this series. But we are on to the rifts, as we can see that now. Oh, we're out of the pause just like that. So maybe I don't even know what it could have been for that 6 seconds, but we are onto the rift. You're going to see both of these teams battle it out for that crown, that trophy here, the championship series, Titan Conqueror League, Syndicate Coke, Omega Fever, game number 1 here. What are we looking for, Swifty, to start this game off? Who is going to run this early game? How are these teams going to play this early game? What are we going to see?
I think the first thing that I notice, at least, is I know we were just talking about the jungle matchup. Warwick can accelerate the game pace very, very quickly. Whereas, like Potatoes had said, Viego sort of wants to play for these team fights, these sort of lopsided fights and skirmishes to get resets off and to really warp any game state or fight state, right? We I think, famously have Senna, Tom Kench, which is a fasting, sort of more slow-paced lane. I think typically associated with more slow play. I have a feeling we're going to see Omega Gaming Fever try to control the pace of the game in a way that's going to set them up for mid-game fights, mid-game objectives more cleanly. I don't think they want to put the foot on the pedal too quickly, too hard here, and possibly overstep. However, I do think with the Warwick on the board, maybe not so with the rest of the team composition, but Syndicate Coke's Warwick, I think, will be able to, on his own, control sort of the pace of the game. So if I'm Packapall in this situation, I'm possibly thinking, how can I manipulate, just as one champion, as much of the game pace as possible, such that my team can get an advantage as early as possible.
I think, the Warwick's going to be looking for any lanes that are heavy trading with each other, getting low, able to utilize that move speed to get up or down into those lanes and make a difference early on. But, there's a lot of sustain in bottom lane. I don't know if there's going to be too much trading going on early, since I think all of these lanes are pretty even. So it might be a little slower in the jungle until these team fights start. Nice E from Stubby on the Poppy to interrupt that dash from the Ornn, by the way.
We're seeing a lot of grass procs come through in this top side. Big trading in mid as well. If trading in bot lane is happening at a consistent pace, it's going to benefit Maze and Debay because you're constantly getting those stacks into the Senna. That is the strength of the Senna Tom Kench. It's not a strategy that I have seen yet in the Conqueror League, not a strategy that's very popular. So I wonder if Solo Mason and Frozen Spuds, the rest of Syndicate Coke, prepared for this, because the sustain and the constant trading of the Senna Tom Kench lane is what they want to utilize the most.
Sure, I think the trading obviously is going to accelerate their ability to hit those power spikes, right, with Senna and her stacks. However, I'm going to bring it back to Warwick. I think he's sort of the key, the back pocket smoking gun here. I think over trading could possibly be a downside for the side of him in Game Fever spot lane. If you're very low, Warwick knows. Anywhere on the map, he has blood scent, and he will be able to sort of take you out. It looks like they're letting the wave sort of come back into them, which I think is a much, much safer space for them to be in. If they're going to be trading a lot, you don't necessarily want to be in a position in the lane where Warwick can quickly shut you down. As we see Packapall move towards his bot side, he's probably just going to pick up the scuttle, realizing there isn't a play here. However, Kiba Boy's pretty low in the mid lane. I'm not sure if Warwick's W is procced yet. It doesn't look like it is on Kiba, but a dangerous place to be. Ooh, it possibly is. Yeah, it looks like it is. A dangerous place to be if you're any lane here with a Warwick.
Just barely is in range. Got a little chunked out more now, and the Warwick is waiting in that bush, but gonna try to get that reset off, probably buy some items before getting back out onto the map, unless something happens in these next few seconds. I just wanted to come in with some stats, because I do see that Maze and Debay played this lane before, and it went very well for them. We had a deathless Senna, 6-0 and 20 was the scoreline in that game. Debay also 7-3 and 15 on the Tom Kench. So, I don't know if this is something that Syndicate Coke was prepared for, but might be something they should be scared of.
Certainly. They are pretty good at this combination. And for the moment, though, a pretty good weathering of the storm for Solo Mason and Frozen Spuds. You saw the low HP there for Maze. Now it's Sailor that wants to get involved. Abyssal Dive is going to connect. I would have to believe this is first blood. It is going to go onto that Senna, and it will be Omega Fever to strike first. Just as you were singing their praises here, Potatoes, they grabbed that first blood. They are already online here in game 1 of this best of 5.
And it felt like Frozen Spuds might have held that flash a little too long. The Abyssal Dive from the Tom Kench, has a big old hitbox, and I think seeing the miss from the Viego, you got to get out of there as fast as you can. So maybe greeting the Summoner spell a little bit, and yeah, it gives over first blood there.
Yep, we're gonna see the abyssal dive, abyssal voyage. Someone correct me. I think I'm wrong on one of them.
One of those two.
One of those
Abyssal
two. I
something.
can't remember. Just such a powerful ability, particularly when you have, a lane opponent that's half health like that. I was singing sort of Warwick's praises as a champion on being able to sort of shut down lanes that are heavily trading. Want to bring it back to the idea that Viego can do the same. A well-timed Viego gank with great lockdown from a Tom Kench can perform exactly the same way here. So props to Sailor and props to DeBay to making that happen and sort of putting them on the board early here.
Absolutely.
And I think that Omega is going to kind of want to play a similar way for most of this game. They have a comp that can really set up picks very effectively. They have the Aurora ult to start up team fights. Poppy has the stun, and if Viego can follow up on any of that, actually, it's some heavy
Between
trading.
Worlds is used. But Retail Row is going to be the benefactor of the fact that you don't get trapped in the Between Worlds anymore. You're in the world, and whenever you want to leave that world, well, you can just step on out of there. You do get slowed, but not going to be the demise of Retail Row this time. As we see the Grubs being taken, priority in top lane, Maze as well. Another key thing about the Senna Tom Kench is you get these juicy stacks off the Grubs.
Yeah, I really like the strategy, Ferris. You're sending, instead of the support up for Grubs, which is typically what you see as sort of these macro gameplay decisions, you're setting up the fasting Senna. Senna grabs Grubs, Grub stacks rather. Tom Kench is still able to pick up farm in the bot lane and is relatively safe, just being a more beefy champion. I really like it. And in response here, Pakapal is going to make the call for Frozen Spuds to come up, grab the dragon, which is ultimately the only thing you can do in those situations. You have to make some cross-map trade here. Syndicate Coke not going without some sort of answer here.
And I think that's kind of how you'd expect this early game to go. The bot lane from Syndicate Coke can get a lot of push and priority early. I think they do have a little bit of the early edge just with the amount of poke that they have access to. And I think Omega Fever is pretty happy to get the Grubs because I think the Aurora can be a pretty good side lane threat. And just the way their comp plays in general, I think being able to take turrets on those side lanes really favors them.
It's going to be spotted here. Pakapal is going to see Sailor in his jungle right now. Sailor's going to have to try and make a play to get out of here, but here is Retail Row pushes him back with the Emperor's Divide. The Heartbreaker will bring him over the wall, but it will be the Azir to find that one. The Call of the Forge God used as well. They might not have needed it, but all the help they can get, they bring it to a 1-1 game score. Syndicate Coke, they strike back in their own jungle.
Really well played there. Understanding where the prio was, jungle tracking there for the side of Syndicate Coke. Part of me was worried for Pakapal there a little bit. You could see Pakapal made an attempt to walk into Fever's blue side. As we're going to get some
That's
Tom
a bubble. DeBay, can he get up with the Abyssal Dive? He cannot. Solo Mason will grab that one. And we are seeing now the 2v2 of that Varus Nami. Really strong for Syndicate Coke spot side.
That lockdown that they have, the Varus ult, very easy to hit and sets up a Nami bubble as another Between Worlds almost takes Retail Row's life, but he is able to shuffle away. Gonna have to take it back.
Oh!
Wow. From
Yeah,
downtown, the Senna with the Dawning Shadow. Maze showing their proficiency on this champion.
Was that a 3-man? Oh!
Risky Infinite Duress as well. Kibaboy action all across the map. Into the Veil they go, but not before Pakapal will claw them down. First kill of the game for that Warwick. We're starting to see the pace of this game, fellas, pick up a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Potatoes.
Surprised we're seeing so many kills early, especially for the Senna. I mean, that's your big scaling threat. You want all the gold you can on her, and she got a lot of souls off of those early Grubs. Now, it looks like they're also going to rotate Maze to mid for now. That could be for when these next Grubs spawn, or just, playing the wave to cover for Aurora.
W's going to flash. Could be a 2v2 in the top side. Let's see. Spectral Maw, is it going to connect flash? What in the world, Sailor? That's not it, my friend. Keeper's Verdict is just going to push him away. Okay. They end up getting the priority here, but that might have not been the execution that they drew up before that one went down. As Pakapal looking here for Maze, who flashes the emote and also flashes away. But here comes Retail Row on the Azir, but Sailor will be able to grab the first kill, goes into that Warwick form. Flash over the wall from Fourth Espada to try and escape from this play, and he will be successful. Now it's Retail Row in a really unfortunate position, stuck in the 4 versus 1. The flash will buy him some space. The root from the Senna will not connect. He should be able to walk this one out. Some damage from Kimba Boy. Can they get it? No, the shifting sands will bring him to safety for the moment, but now it is Sailor who's come from the other side. They complete the dive, and we see another scrap here in the top lane.
Wow. How's your voice doing, Ferris? That was an
It's all right.
extended
It's surviving.
play. It's surviving. Wow, quite the extended play. A handful of what seems to be miscommunications here, on top of some mechanical misplays. Unfortunate Poppy ult, but the turn on this play here, Packapol's ultimate is not able to do enough. Sailor's able to get the reset here. Resets on Viego are absolutely gross. We see the ult quite not make it over the wall. However, Retail Row is now in a position where Aurora is on the backside. They sort of know they have this kill so long as they can walk it back in. I think, Ornn got the... Okay, I thought Ornn had died at first. Ornn just got a back off here. Great capitalization, I think, on a little bit of overzealous play here from the side of Syndicate Coke, and Omega Gaming Fever is able to take the lead in kills. They're up 700 golds now.
And I really like how Stubby played that dive at the end there, tanking up the turret so that Viego can get in, get the stun, and they get out. I think it's really unfortunate for Syndicate Coke that Espada was out of mana, so right as the shuffle comes in from Azir, he's not able to use any of that follow-up with the knock-up on the wall or anything like that, and it means that, you know, what was a very close fight goes pretty decisively in the way of Omega Fever. So they're going to go for the second grub. Senna's not here to get those souls this time around, but they are going to get 6 of those, it looks like, so that'll be the Void Mites for them, and there's a dragon spawning in 20 seconds that might be contested this time around.
Syndicate Coke, they're going to want to stack those dragons because they've given over to the other side those 6 scrubs. They're looking to get aggressive around it. I think this is the right choice to make, because if they don't get this, then you're really giving away those 6 scrubs for not for naught, but you don't have that luxury of being able to stack those dragons, getting something back in the trade. And so that is what Syndicate Coke is preparing for. And Omega Fever, they're aware of this.
Yeah, they're aware, and it looks like they're trying to stop as much of this dragon setup as possible. They're a little bit late to the start, though, Syndicate Coke. They actually opt to not formally take and sort of force this dragon here, as Solo Mason is getting ran out a little bit, but it won't amount to anything. Now, Syndicate Coke's unwillingness to sort of pull the trigger here may be doomed for
Packapol's in trouble here between worlds. Heartbreaker flashed away from. There's the heal from Frozen Spuds. This play's breaking out right behind the Dragon Pick. Hold the Forge God's going to run through. It's going to knock up the Viego, but there's just no follow-up right now. Debay with the Devour and the Abyssal Voyage. Going to shoot out Maze there to safety. A really tense exchange around the back of the pit here, Potatoes, but no one is going to fall.
It does feel like Syndicate Coke comes out a little bit on top in terms of the health bars, but it seems like they chose to trade the blue for the grubs instead of the dragon. With that buff resetting, they were pretty late getting onto it, and Omega Fever had time to come from the other side of the map and contest that objective.
We're seeing XPs now. Espada? No, he's going to be okay. They're just teleporting in.
Okay. They're going to start it themselves, though. Omega Gaming Fever, which is not how I thought this would have panned out if you asked me 45 seconds ago. I think maybe a little bit of a mistake, as Potatoes, you said before. Forcing the blue and having it reset rather than just forcing the drag, understanding that Viego's on the top side, seeing grubs go down. I think a little bit overzealous with trying to take more on the map than they needed to. As Stubby's here for the stun.
Retail Row stuns him up with the heroic charge. The Keeper's Verdict will knock him up as well. Boy doesn't have that between worlds, but it will not matter. Aurora does enough damage. Infinite Duress comes out from Packapol, but does he have the damage to knock down this Poppy? It doesn't look like that's the case. He's going to have to walk back, tail between his legs, with his mid laner down.
That's Omega Fever getting a pretty decisive lead now, as things were being traded more or less across the map for most of this early game. But now, as we're hitting that 14-minute mark, 6 grubs and a dragon and some kills, all in Omega Fever's pocket. Still only about a 1,000 gold lead, but those permanent buffs are going to do wonders for them as we head into this mid-game. Looks like Syndicate Coke's going to start up the Herald, though, and this might be an objective that they get for free this time around, as Omega Fever still has yet to take recalls on some of their champions.
Yeah, Potatoes, I think there's a realization here, if you're Syndicate Coke, that I don't necessarily think this early game went the way you would have wanted it to, ideally, on paper. I think you sort of, as Syndicate Coke, control the tools to control the tempo early in this game, and they haven't really been able to convert on that. I think a handful of misplays, a handful of sort of maybe miscommunications, and not willing to take that dragon when I think they really should be 2 dragons up to 0 here. I think there's an understanding that maybe they're playing from the back foot a little bit, and they aren't necessarily playing into a composition where they can walk into the mid game, behind or even. I think we're seeing a fasting Senna work very, very well. We have an Aurora who's already 2-1-1, sort of in the driver's seat in this lane, in the mid lane. Viego is only going to get more, or become rather, more of a problem as a team fight tool and sort of menace as this game goes on. I think Syndicate Coke needs to have the realization that if they want to bring this game back into their hands and put themselves back in the driver's seat, I think they need to be making smarter decisions, smarter trades, and I think the Rift answer there, a free Rift, is a start.
Absolutely. One of the great things about the composition that Syndicate Coke have drafted for themselves is that scaling. So later on, if they are able to survive, again, the lead is not insurmountable at all. It is controlled for Omega Fever. There are up a very tiny amount of gold, but still a very fine game state for them. There's a lot of scaling available as Stubby, he's going to blast going right on in. The bubble's going to go wide. He's just going to walk that one out. The one thing I wanted to mention on Omega Fever's side is, for you guys to analyze, this is a Echoes of Helia Senna. We're going to see a play happen in the mid lane, though, as it is going to be the Emperor's Divide, the Shurima shuffle here from Retail Row, but they can't get anything off of it. It will be Sailor to grab that one. Keeper's Verdict does go wide. They want to keep Pack-a-Ball here in this situation in the mid lane. Heroic Charge does land. All of the CC is going to fall down onto the Warwick, and it will be the Senna to grab that one. They're sieging the tier 1. Flash away from Stubby. He's hit up by the Chains of Corruption. The bubble goes wide onto Maze. It is once again Omega Fever that make the plays happen in response.
And the target focus is a little bit split, I think, on the side of Syndicate Coke. We see that plays start off with the ultimate from the Azir, knocking Kibaboy into tower, but he actually wasn't tanking. Someone else from Omega Fever was able to pick up the aggro, so, combine that with the Between Worlds, and Kibaboy gets out for free. Meanwhile, Retail Row ends up in a really dangerous position, and does drop, and that just starts the fight off on the wrong foot for Syndicate Coke.
I have to agree with you there, Potatoes. I think it's a great look from Retail Row. However, there was no means of Azir to get out of that fight there. And when you have a Tom Kench and even a Senna for heals and shielding, as well as Viego, who are sort of fight warping picks, right, with the ability to just eat a teammate, save them from death in the resets. I think their sort of miscommunication here, lack of target focus, sort of bites them in the butt as they walk away 0-2 in this fight, unfortunately. As we're going to go into the replay here to see what happens.
It was, like you said, it wasn't Kibaboy tanking underneath that tower. Excellent point there that you guys made. And the engage fails, the re-engage is good. All of that sustained from the Senna, which I also wanted to make that point before this play happened, is a supportive style Senna. Echoes of Helia. It's not that damage Senna that we were used to a whole long time ago before those changes came through a couple patches ago and really warped the way that Senna, fasting Senna that is played. A lot of Omega Fever's game is reliant on Sailor and on Kibaboy to deal the damage, as well as this Tom Kench, which, by the way, if any of you are not familiar, is a extremely strong champion on this patch of League of Legends right now.
The Senna, I think support works really well for Omega. As for the Senna build, the Viego's quite fed, the Aurora's quite fed, so if you can keep them alive, the fight just doesn't stop. You can keep that ball rolling and just steamroll the enemy if they can't get a counterattack. But actually, it's another flash in.
Missile dive onto Solo Mason. You're able to get away from this one. The Dawning Shadow, though, is going to land onto 3 members, and Debay will pick up Pack-a-Paul. Call the Forge God is big, but he misses Fourth Espada. A rare misplay from this very seasoned Ornn player, but Solo Mason with the Piercing Arrow able to get one back for Syndicate Coke's side. Sailor on the other side, bottom area of the map, not able to get involved in this fight.
And I think it was actually the Poppy W maybe that interrupted the recast of the Ornn there. It was a little hard to see if that circle was overlapping on Fourth Espada, but yeah, that's another fight going in favor of Omega Fever as they look to this dragon. Syndicate Coke might be contesting though.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Syndicate Coke, I think, was about to push mid down, and I think they made a realization that the dragon's being taken, but the dragon goes down without a sort of re-engage from Syndicate Coke here. So they don't get the re-engage fight on the dragon. They also don't get the mid lane turret. A little bit of slow decision-making maybe cost them there in being able to trade something. However, backs are being channeled for Omega Gaming Fever. We have 5 for Syndicate Coke in the mid lane. I expect this tower to go down as Rift Herald is dropped in the mid lane.
It's summoned. It should get this charge off. There shouldn't be any way that they DPS this one down before Shelly makes her mark. There it is. Mid lane tower gone for Syndicate Coke. Now, they have actually been able to knock this down before Omega Fever has, despite all of that pressure that they have applied here. Taking a look at the gold, it is dead even in this game. Look at fourth Espada's level 12, very close to getting those ornaments online. And Solo Mason, a player that you guys pointed out before this match started, a big player for Syndicate Coke, still deathless on this Varus, good CS, and it's that on-hit Varus that can carry games much easier than the lethality Varus can.
It's been feeling like Omega has a big lead, but yeah, the gold is actually quite even. You know, maybe some level leads a little bit in the objective department, but this is still very close. And I think both teams, you know, when it comes to team fighting, I expect these to actually be very close. I think these teams have very strong team fighting compositions in different ways, right? Omega Fever really wants to get that opening pick, that reset for Viego, as we're going to see a replay here of how this all went down.
Unfortunate for Packball going down there immediately, but the lockdown for the Orin, oh, it is tragic that it misses, but Omega Gaming Fever here chooses to continue to fight when it maybe seems like they could have just backed out at that point. Maybe a little bit of an overstay. But regardless, it ends up in a 1-for-1 trade for Omega and Syndicate Coke, excuse me, right before they move down to the Dragon, be able to pick that one up there as well. But yeah, it's interesting, Potatoes, like you said. The gold is virtually dead even. It's only, what, a 300 gold lead for Fever at this point in the game. And you look at the scoreboard, you see a lot of shutdowns for the side of Fever. So a lot of gold open on the map for Syndicate Coke. Part of me is curious, and maybe, you know, this is me theory crafting a little bit as to why this is the case, but part of me is curious whether or not Fasting Senna has anything to do with that. We see a 304 Senna as opposed to a 200 Varus. However, Fasting Senna isn't picking up minion gold in the same way. As hitting another mid lane.
Solo Mason gonna flash forward and try and find the kill into Kimbaboy. He gets the shutdown 1-for-1. Solo Mason makes the ballsy play to flash forward on the marksman and is going to get paid for it and make that play a 1-for-1. Excellent stuff. Let's see if it continues here. Stubby is waiting from the wings, trying to find an engage here onto the Warwick. They're going to get it. Infinite Duress, though, is going to lock up the Viego, but there's just no damage between this Nami and this Warwick. They're forced to flash away, and reset. Keeper's Verdict will not find any value in the mid lane. It's Omega Fever that knocked down that tower, and a 1-for-1 with Solo Mason getting a big shutdown.
I really like that play from Solo Mason. It's just fun seeing someone get that aggressive. Now Retail Rose in some danger. Gonna walk away though, and actually nearly get Sailor back. But you know, having the courage to flash in on the Aurora like that. Now Maze has to flash as well. Yeah, I think that's very cool to see from an AD carry player. You know, not just gonna sit back, do nothing, try to poke. It's an aggressive Varus that we're seeing here, and it works. It gets a kill. I mean, now on the flip side, Omega Fever does end up getting the tower. I think in large part because there's no ranged DPS with wave clear to stop them from doing that. But you know, in the mental warfare game, I am giving Solo Mason the advantage there.
It's a great point. The mental warfare game. You know, mental warfare in League of Legends is a big portion of the game, whether we like to admit it or not, as Debay may be caught in a bad position here.
Knocked up with the searing charge. Dawning Shadow comes through, though. Call of the Ford got excellent bubble here from Frozen. Spuds Pac-a-Paul is able to pick up Debay. They're teleporting in there Azir as well. Stubby trying to get to the wall to flash. He will get it, but he'll still be knocked up. The Senna is found with the Shurima. Shuffle 3 down for this side of Omega Fever. And Syndicate Coke, that's ringing the alarm bells that the Baron is alive. And they're turning tails right there.
Syndicate Coke now grabs the lead for themselves, 1.5k gold up, and they might be able to get this Baron. Sailor is in the area, has the ult to go over the wall for a steal, but it's going to be tough to get close there. Looks like they might just opt to trade the bot side turret away and also threaten on the mid lane, take some farm, because, you know, Viego dying is not what you want. And yeah, so Syndicate Coke going to grab the Baron. We'll see how much advantage they can take of that within the next 3 minutes as this dragon is spawning.
Yeah, I agree with you, Potatoes. Sailor dying is probably not great for a traded Baron there if it means they do not get the third dragon. I think they're willing to accept their losses there as we move into this replay. And Debay just getting CC'd out the wazoo in the execute. Oh, maybe actually it was Warwick. It wasn't the execute from Varus that actually picked up the final kill. Oh, excellent Shurima shuffle on Maze, and then Warwick running down Stubby's Poppy for the final kills. We're going to see
another fight. Infinite Duress. Pac-a-Paul, they're looking for it. Here's fourth Espada in the middle of everyone as well, but a good front line, huge between worlds from Kimbaboy, who does massive damage. The Heartbreaker from Sailor will strike right into the hearts of Omega Fever as he gets out with the shifting sands as the Azir Omega Fever show. They're not done just yet. They win the fight around the dragon. They are approaching that soul, and there is no way for the steal as their jungler's down.
Just when things are starting to look good for Syndicate Coke, they go, I think, a little too far on the engage, and a huge between worlds from Kibba Boy is really what seals the fight in Omega Fever's favor. That gets all those health bars low, and that's exactly how Omega Fever wants to play those fights. Find one of those squishies, get a flank off, get Viego that first kill, and just chain those resets together. It's only 2 kills, but that's the 3rd dragon, and this game is once again very, very close.
Very, very close. It looks like still Omega Gaming Fever is in a deficit position in the gold, but however, we're gonna get a look at this. Stunned up by Stubby as wow. Between Worlds is absolutely gross there. This is why we ban Aurora, ladies and gentlemen. As they're going to pick up 2 for O on the kills here. This is, I believe, Omega Gaming Fever's 3rd dragon of the game. So we're going to see them 1k gold behind Syndicate Coke. However, it still very much so feels like they are in the driver's seat. The gold does not seem to be indicative of the actual power level between these 2 teams in this game. And Ferris, I want to bring it back to a point that you made earlier about the sort of scaling between these 2 teams. I know that Syndicate Coke, like we said, they have an Ornn, they have a Varus Azir who can scale relatively well right into the game. Ornn is, one of the premier scaling sort of coordinated play picks in that it buffs items for the rest of your teammates. However, having a Viego and Aurora, especially like a permanent scaling Senna, can be very dangerous as, oh man, we're fighting.
In a whole lot of trouble. DeBay has devoured the Ornn and will pick it up. Shutdown will go to that Viego. It is such a close game right now, and it wants to be Sailor who is going to continue this play. Heartbreaker won't quite close the gap. Into the mist they go, trying to fish for this 5 versus 4. Retail row could be found out here. Spectral Maw will not connect. Azir Tower summoned up in the mid lane to mount the defense of the siege for the side of Syndicate Coke right now. Pay attention to Stubby in the wings. Pakapal guarding on that right side as well. They're waiting for their moment to go. The root is going to connect onto these here. There's the Between Worlds, and it will be Retail Row to fall, but he gets the Emperor's Divide off with his dying breath. Pakapal is the front line for the team. They're diving under the Azir turret. It's doing so much damage. Can they get out? It looks like the answer is going to be yes, but Pakapal very fast on this Warwick. Is he going to fish for a re-engage? He is not. Action throughout the mid lane.
Wow.
I think Syndicate Coke once again overforce a little bit. They see they have a little time left on the Baron buff, and they really want that turret, but it ends up being 4th Espada, giving their life for that in the mid lane, and another big team fight win for the side of Omega.
Yeah, it was very close here, right? I think that, Retail Row's Shurima Shuffle was very, very close to spelling doom, particularly with the tower still being up on this heavy dive play. However, the damage just isn't quite there. Resistances, armor and health, I think at this point in the game, 28 minutes in, a little too high for Turret to really be solo carrying these anti-dive plays. And like I was saying before all this fighting broke out, I think Omega Gaming Fever has a sneaky amount of scaling and late game threat built into their composition. Viego's ability to completely warp fights off the back of resets can absolutely tear through teams and their sort of understanding and expectations when they're moving into skirmishes, objective takes, fights, dives, etc. And I think we're seeing that come to fruition here. It seems like Syndicate Coke is trying for these fights in ways that seem like the setup is possible and probable to execute. However, they're just not quite getting the exact results that I think they're expecting to get. And I think part of that is due to, I think it's a little bit of a fight warpy comp for the side of Omega Gaming Fever. And I think Fever knows this, and I think they're using it to great effect here.
Absolutely.
I've got to agree with that point. Like, the Poppy W is so good at denying engages. You have the Tom Kench that can eat anyone that gets picked. And actually, speaking of picks, 4th Espada getting engaged on down here.
4th Espada is in trouble. Does Sailor and Stubby have the damage to knock him down? It looks like they do. This Viego's eating through the HP bar pretty quickly. Espada does have flash. No, Espada. You hate to see it. Not here. Not in the grand final. You got Swifty singing right now for that. That's the pill. That's the pick.
Oh no.
Oh my goodness.
I've done that. It's okay, man.
And we've got about 30 seconds on this dragon, 20 seconds on the Baron, and with 4th Espada dead, Omega Fever might be able to have their pick of what they want here. Syndicate Coke waiting in a bush, but they're on top of a ward. We'll see if Omega Fever takes advantage of this with the Bay now moving into range for that engage.
Oh, they
They're
just
waiting
dropped
for
the pink.
this.
Now
They're
they know.
gonna
The
go
fight's gonna
right
break
in
out.
now. Retail Row is going to get one shot, or maybe not with the flash over the wall. DeBay is hitting onto Pocket Paul. Maze as well, fighting right here. The Between Worlds has went down from Boy. He flashes away. First kill of the fight goes to Sailor, who knocks down that Warwick and will transform into him as well. Solo Mason, the 80 carry, is in the backside of the fight in no man's land. No one there to provide the peel. Sailor is godlike. Omega Fever are taking control of this game, and they have their eyes on their first Baron.
Decent
Again,
amount of damage
not
coming
moving.
out from Solo Mason, but I mean that's a 4v5. You don't have the Ornn, who's really that major frontliner there, and it's so hard to play those fights out as the Varus when you have, you know, an Aurora, a Poppy, a Viego diving onto you. And so that's going to be Baron, the second Baron of the game, going over to Omega Fever.
Uh-oh.
Wait a second.
Azir's
Retail
going in.
Row. Stubby is going to be in a difficult situation, 1 versus 3 for the moment. The rest of the team is arriving, though, and they know this does Syndicate Coke, so they're going to head on out of here. I want to reiterate, this is Soul on the line for Omega Fever. It looks like they're going to get it uncontested. Chemtech Soul, when they're below half, they're going to be even more deadly. A scary prospect for Syndicate Coke.
Some would say the scariest prospect when you have Senna, Tom Kench, healing from the Viego, just so many shields, so many heals. The added tenacity just from the regular Drakes, you know, the Chemtech Drakes, it just added bonus on top of it. What a potent soul, I think, for this team composition. I already think Syndicate Coke is finding a hard time, you know, pulling through and getting past that finish line in a lot of these skirmishes. It's going to be even harder now for them. I do want to give a shout out really quick to Solo Mason on that last fight, who sort of alone left in the world in the jungle is able to put out so much damage still, almost take out Stubby, almost take out Kiba Boy, basically in like 2 consecutive 1v1s. I think they have the tools to do something, and they have the tools to make something happen. I think with this Chemtech Drake on the board for the side of Fever, it's going to be significantly harder, but I think they need to slow down, quickly figure out what is the way that we take a fight that we're guaranteed to win it. Because right now they're taking these forced, rushed fights, and I don't think they can find what they're looking for. And I think the door is closing quickly for Syndicate Coke on a fight that is going to be winnable for them.
I've got to agree with that point you made there, Swifty. I think Syndicate Coke has the tools, or at least had the tools, you know. It's gotten a lot harder, but they have a very good team fighting team. I just think these engages have been, you know, they've been very split in how they're playing these fights with, you know, maybe Pocket Paul's in too deep or Solo Mason's off somewhere, or just they're fighting
He
a 4v5.
finds the infinite duress. He's been caught out in his jungle once again. He's locked up between multiple members of Omega Fever. DeBay, of all people, will find that one. They continue the siege onto that top tier 2. No jungler now for Syndicate Coke. They're going to try and mount a defense, but they can't do that. They give away this tower. They get ever closer to falling in this one. The siege is going to continue. There's still a lot of resources like the Between Worlds available for Omega Fever to keep this one going. Fourth Espada taking a lot of damage in the front line. They're trying to clear this wave, and we're going to see if they end up finding a play here. Looking for the Tower Dive Keeper's Verdict. Looking to find someone like Fourth Espada who's going to eat it with the Bellows Breath, but Stubby goes forward in the front of the fight. Takes a whole lot of damage. Sterix Gauge is procced. Devour utilized here from Debate as well for the Poppy safety, and now the retreat will come through for Omega Fever.
This Baron feels like a completely different story from the time when Syndicate Coke had it. You know, I think Syndicate's earlier play might have been actually a negative Baron power play, but Omega Fever, they get 2 turrets, they get the inhibitor, and they are very decisively in the lead here. And going back to what I was kind of saying earlier is like, yeah, I think Syndicate Coke really wants to, you know, play things slow, use that CC that they have on all of those ultimates to buy time for the Azir and the Varus to do damage. You don't really want to be going deep and diving ahead. You need to, you know, say, oh, like Viego's trying to find a pick onto Solo Mason or onto Retail Row. We're going to lock him down. We're going to take that threat out early. But instead it kind of feels like, yeah, Syndicate Coke are the ones forcing and getting counter engaged on and you know, very often losing the fights as a result.
Yeah, I think it's also just unfortunate when your Warwick has to blow ult, hits a champion, and then just immediately dies. I think we're looking at, you know, at the beginning of the game and sort of in draft, I had brought up the point that Warwick can be a very big feast or famine champion. I think it doesn't see a lot of coordinated play because of that. I think this is part of the reason. Pack-a-Paul is going to have very limited options outside of the rest of the team's sort of setup and win cons to find usefulness, I think, in a lot of these fights. There's so much CC and so much like preventable death situations for the side of Fever that it's really hard to, even if you're playing it perfectly and really looking for these angles and playing these fights well, it's really hard to be as effective as you want to be on this champion this late into the game, particularly when you're this far behind the Viego. But Packapal's still here, and he's still going to look for
They're
something.
looking for the play. Let's see if they can find it. It's 5 versus 3 for the moment. And cute. Shurima Shuffle's going to find Maze. It's going to find Kimaboy. It is Retail Row, the hero of Syndicate Coke, in this one to bring down 2. Now the rest of Omega Fever trying to run for the hills. Abyssal Dive is going to go through for Debay, still getting hit by those Azir soldiers. They summon up the tower around the tier 2 to continue the siege. Onto the inhibitor they go. The inhibitor tower will fall. It has to be a 3 versus 5 base defense. Will Syndicate Coke push for any more? It looks like they're just going to take the inhibitor and be happy, but just when we thought they were out for the count, it is Syndicate Coke that make the miracle happen and get 2 kills. They want to get more, though. 5 versus 3 underneath the tower. This is very ambitious from this side of Omega Fever. Can they get the reset onto Retail Road? They cannot, as Sailor's forced to flash away. Stubby, so tanky underneath this tower, taking the minion like a taxi to find that kill. Excellent use of the Poppy mechanics, but can you get out of this situation? It looks like you can, because Debay has flashed forward and gobbled up his top laner to bring him to safety. Magic around the tier 2 for the Fever.
Syndicate Coke is finding their, they find their pick. That is a massive pick. They see Tom Kench in the bottom lane and they take advantage. But they do overstay a little bit on the inhibitor, not able to get their recalls off together. And that means that Omega Fever strikes back with Baron spawning shortly and Retail Row still down.
Yeah, I think I anti-caster cursed Packapal with this engage here. So I'll be taking credit for this one. But yeah, 2 go down so quickly. That's their ADC, their fasting ADC, as well as the Aurora. 2 super key components in dealing damage for the side of Omega Fever. And Debay has to just Abyssal dive out. They don't have options. They lose the inhibitor. As we're going to see another fight on Baron.
The Baron, they have found Maze with the infinite duress. It's the same play once again. Retail Row, so good with this Emperor's Divide, but the Between Worlds might have just been better for the Fever. They're looking to continue the play, and they are into the backside, looking to take down this Azir. Solo Mason trying to do as much damage as he possibly can here on the Varus in the backside, forced to use the flash to try and get away, but still, it is Sailor who pushes forward. It is Sailor with the Spectral Mod to knock down the AD carry of Syndicate Coke. The rest of them will fall. Retail Row, the only one to survive. Fellas, we might just see the end of the game right here, right now, as Sailor on this Viego, fully scaled, as much power as possible. 1 Nexus Tower lost. They don't want to go out like FlyQuest did, or like Team Liquid did, rather, in the LCS final. This should just be the push for the end of the game. The Void Mites are trying to tank. They are trying to tank the tower. They're teleporting to the Void Mites. They are going to get the wave. I think they're going to get the first game of this series. Omega Fever showing up strong.
That's
unreal.
That's a game win for Omega Fever in pretty decisive fashion after the mid game. Few falters here and there, but I did like that Syndicate Coke, they started playing to their condition near the end, but they were just behind enough that I don't think it mattered. That early game objective control from Omega Fever, grabbing those dragons, grabbing those grubs, it's too much for Syndicate Coke to overcome.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Potatoes. They certainly had the tools. We discussed this multiple times throughout the game. They had the tools. They had the ability. We saw Retail Row step up after a pretty unfortunate most of the game for that Azir. And then really just come through with those ultimates. And Solo Mason, just as always, just performing really, really well as an ADC on the Varus. I think that going into the second game here, Syndicate Coke needs to realize a few important things. The first being they did not get stomped by any means that first game. I think Omega Gaming Fever played an excellent game. However, there were a lot of openings and a lot of missteps that allowed sort of little gaps in the door for Syndicate Coke to pull off comeback plays. They almost had it there at the end. They were certainly not out for the count. The second thing I think they need to realize is I don't know if they set themselves up well to be able to make those comeback plays this game based on their draft. I think we need to look at the Warwick. I'll go back to the jungle as the jungler here. I think they need to look at the Warwick and realize, okay, on paper, it is a counter to the Viego, right? It's a statistical counter. I think that's part of the reason it was picked. However, it didn't seem like it was necessarily fully in Packapal's wheelhouse in the way that Packapal wants to play and take over a game. I know we've spoken about Packapal being an excellent jungler, being someone who can really play to pace setting in the game as a catalyst for their team. And I think maybe they lean on something more comfortable and lean on something that's a slightly better answer for this team comp and for this Viego moving into game 2.
It looked like they had the fights that they wanted to try and pull off these victories. In the end, it was just Omega Fever that was a little bit too strong. I also want to point out I was missing in this game. I was trying to look for healing reduction items from the side of Syndicate Coke. You have this supportive Senna, this Viego. They are healing a whole storm in this game, and I didn't see any executioners come out of any AD carries. I didn't see any Morellonomicons. A huge factor in this one was the fact that those players were healing so much from the side of Omega Fever. There was also the itemization. Solo Mason, an absolute beast on the Varus, but itemizing into the Wit's End, going then for a defensive item. Looks like it might have been the Randu and Zoman of some kind with the Giant's Belt or the Jack Show, the Protean. You needed that Terminus to be able to eat through that front line. It just wasn't there. Big reasons coupled with a couple other mistakes that Syndicate Coke made that ended up bringing them the L in game number 1, but still a very hard fought victory. Like you both have said, we are going to cut to an intermission. And when we return, we will bring you the draft for game number 2 and our next edition of Kiss, Marry, Kill. So stay tuned for that. This series is by no means over. We are going to have the continuation of it right after this.
Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side. My love, you say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna try, but you never
Welcome back to the grand finals of the Titan Conqueror League between Syndicate Coke and Omega Fever, with Omega Fever striking first in game number 1. 2 games from being crowned your fall 2024 champions, but there's much more work to be done. And Potatoes, break down that game for us here. What were your thoughts, your initial thoughts there after the game concludes? What's got to change for Syndicate Coke? We've already talked about it a little bit, but give us your thoughts on what they got to change to bring us an even series after game 2.
So the first place my mind goes, and we say this word a lot, is nerves. I feel like there were times that game where Syndicate Coke maybe had all the tools they needed to make a team fight work, but they had someone, going a little too far, engaging a little too early. And I think that, if someone missteps even a tiny bit against that comp that Omega Fever has that game, Viego gets a reset and the whole fight is just ruined. So, I think in that, like, for example, I think you want, your Azir to really be playing for peel more than engage maybe, and, using the Warwick to lock down someone that's overextending and tank up for longer rather than diving in. So I think part of it is just those kind of major decisions in how you play the team fights for me.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you, Potatoes, there. I think it's sort of maybe, nerves, maybe it's miscommunication, excitement, all of the above. But clearly, I think their win cons weren't played to exactly the way that they needed to be. I'm curious how that affects draft game 2. I also certainly think that they had the tools and almost made it happen, Syndicate Coke, in coming back, right? I think Solo Mason in particular, I think their bot lane in general, Solo Mason and Spuds, even Espada on the Ornn. I think the Ornn's just a fantastic pick. It's a rock in the top lane. I think they really held their own, and they found openings where openings didn't seem to really exist, at least to my eye. So to me, all the tools are there to make something happen. I think it's about slowing yourselves down. I think it's about going back to the drawing board. What works? What are we going to put ourselves on that's really going to be as effective as possible? And then, try to take nerves out of the equation. I think a big one for me, and I know we talked about it over break a little bit, is the Warwick pick. I think on paper it's a counter into the Viego. I understand the reasoning behind it. I think Pakapal as a player has the drive and these sort of tools to set a game pace with a champ like Warwick very early. However, I think in a coordinated and competitive scenario, it doesn't always pan out the way you think it's going to. And then when you're in a situation like Potatoes, you just said, where you are stuck between wanting to do the Warwick thing or wanting to do the Azir thing of go in, make this big play, get this lockdown, when you really should be falling backward, I think that's when you fall into the trap. So as we move into draft, I'm really curious to see how they adjust to what happened game 1.
We're going to see what the adaptations are for both of these teams, and I don't believe we've had a side swap. It will be Omega Fever once again on that red side. Syndicate Coke, even though they lost on that blue side, they feel that they can still pull off the win here. We'll see what they prioritize as well on that first pickup and what's going to change in the bans as well. Syndicate Coke is keeping that Syndra away from Kibaboy, who's played it so many times. The Lilia still going to stay off the board. I think that makes sense. You want to take those intuitive champions for Pakapal off the table because of maybe a little bit of that shaky performance like we talked about on the Warwick.
I'd expect to maybe see the Ornn picked up first here, unless it's banned away. That was a pretty effective pick for the side of Syndicate Coke. We know that Espada's very comfortable on it. And I think, considering how things were going not so great for them that game, it still had its moments.
We're going to see the Viego actually taken off the board. First phase. I like it, a Syndicate Coke. I think it's a big thing to not let ego get in the way and be like, no, don't ban it. I have a better pick this time. The Viego, just as a competitive and coordinated jungle pick, is super potent. It's just a fact. It's super strong. When in the right hands, it's even stronger. So I like taking it off the board. They're going to go back to the drawing board for the jungle v jungle matchup. But the rest of the draft, guys, looks like it's the same. Like Potatoes, you said, we've got the Ornn being picked up B1. I think that's a fine pick. If you're going to pick a top laner B1, might as well be Ornn, particularly in this elo. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. TK, Fasting, Senna, bot lane.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They were going to run it back. I think it makes sense. If you get the exact same scenario and that scenario worked for you, then go for it. We're going to see a different approach now in the AD carry for Solo Mason, this time picking something that has a little bit more of a scaling identity. The Sivir has a lot easier of a time perma-clearing waves, perma shoving you in, and then focusing on those last hits to scale into the later stage of the game. And they are taking an enchanter, a new enchanter. The Seraphine, again, could maybe go into the mid lane for Retail Row, but likely going into the hands of Frozen Spuds, as we've got a monster frontline building for Omega Fever.
Omega Fever has a lot of frontline, but I think the draft that Syndicate Coke has so far can deal with it pretty decently. When Sivir has those blades bouncing around that frontline, it can deal a lot of damage. And they've got a lot of speed, a lot of ways, the Sivir spell shield can stop some of that engage. And yeah, I think great tools to deal with this. It might take some time for the items to come through, the armor penetration, the anti-heal, that kind of thing, but I think they've got better answers this time around than they had in game number 1. I also wanted to note that we do have now Debay and Naysayer in the bottom lane for the side of Omega Fever. So that is a change in players from game number 1, but they're still rolling with the same lane. It worked great for them that first time around.
Wonder if we see any sort of like microcosmic sort of differences in the way the lane plays out and how they play the champions. But yeah, I want to bring it back to the Sivir Seraphine. I'm a fan. I like it. I think it shores up some of the weaknesses that we saw out of the bot lane. Not saying that Syndicate Coke's bot lane was weak per se, but I think had Solo Mason and Frozen Spuds had a Sivir Sarah, I think a lot of these fights turn out maybe a little bit different. And bringing this back to the bans actually from Omega Gaming Fever, I like seeing the Gwen and the Shyvana band. I think it's super good, both of those champions, into beefy frontline comps like a Cho'Gath, like a Tahm Kench. And then we're going to see just, clean slate, new jungle pick. Skarner, super strong, just has so much utility on a team. And then Xin Zhao, another staple pick. And then to wrap it up, mirror match, salty run back in the mid lane. Jamie, what do you think about that? Excuse me, potatoes.
Yeah. So I think this is a matchup that Azir can definitely win. He has a lot of DPS. He has the E to get out of that Aurora ult. I think the key this time around in the matchup for Azir is going to be playing around when you're strong. I think we saw some of those fights maybe go not so well because Azir hadn't completed an item or something, was on, almost on that Nashers or something, because I do think Retail Row racked up a few early deaths. And I think if you can minimize those early deaths, just play safe and scale, you're going to do a lot more damage than the Aurora in these team fights. Obviously Aurora has a lot of utility, a lot of engage, but I think you can definitely go punch for punch with that champion if you're hitting those power spikes. So that's going to really be the key here in the mid lane.
Pro comps, they think 60% over 40% here for Omega Gaming Fever. Pro comps favors the red side draft. And again, with this on our screen, if you do want to level up your drafting, then check out Pro comps. It's a great tool to help you learn more and draft better and smarter. Whether you're a coach, whether you're a player that's drafting for your squad, definitely give them a check out. As we see now, level 1, Pack of Paul in tandem with the Espada, getting that ward down here. And I like the point that you're mentioning there, potatoes. Don't die early if you are Syndicate Coke. Once again, they have a monster late game team. They have the shielding from the Seraphine. My question is now, with the very similar style compositions we have from game 1 and 2, there's a lot of dueling potential on Omega Fever. Can Syndicate Coke go toe for toe in these early objectives?
I like seeing those deep wards come out, by the way. Just props to the bot lane is all I wanted to say from Omega Fever.
I was worried they might miss XP actually because they were pretty late coming to lane, but they are going to show up in time to start catching that experience, start getting some farm in. But it is going to be the early shove in favor of Syndicate Coke. They don't have like a crazy level 2 to take advantage of, but they might be able to, get some poke in and start taking control of that lane early on.
Yeah, I think the Seraphine Sivir, at least once they have both the skill shots. I mean, the Seraphine, I believe it's the Q, and then the Q on Sivir. I think it's a good way to take sort of a trade and force a lane state without having to get too close. I think it's a relatively safe lane, right? But again, I think Omega Gaming Fever is pretty confident in this lane. We've seen them pick it twice. We've seen them pick it with different actual players, right? So I think they're comfortable with this lane. I think they're going to let themselves scale. They're going to let themselves sort of play it safe here. Curious to see if we actually see as much trading, Ferris, as you pointed out before in the last game. And honestly, it took me a little bit by surprise, but to your analysis and credit, a trading Senna gets stacks more quickly. So I'm curious to see if they take this route this game, or if this lane matchup sort of changes the way they have to play it out.
The way that they're getting pushed in right now makes it very difficult because Debate has to focus on those last hits And if you want to try and trade as well, it's going to be dividing your attention there. It's a lot more difficult to play underneath that tower. And in a lane where Sivir can take control is a lane where she's going to be very happy. Normally, Sivir is this champion that is bullied early on, has to use that spell shield to get away from key abilities that threaten her in the lane. But with the range of this Seraphine right now, you just saw the double beat drop connect onto Naysayer and Debay, chunking down their HP bars, constantly pushing in these waves. I wonder here, Swifty, to your point, if they are going to be able to get that effective trading in this bot side. As Sailor now full clear completed on the Xin Zhao, maybe trying to make a visit to the mid lane, flashing for the win becomes lightning. So aggressive here, easy escape for Retail Row.
But the wave state's not that good for the Azir. If Aurora can set up a freeze here, they might be able to pull off a regank once Retail Row teleports in. And if you blow your teleport and then die, that's going to feel bad. But it does seem like Sailor might be, going for the crab, not immediately camping the bush, and is going to take the recall. So maybe not immediate advantage taken of that summoner or, Azir having to use that teleport, but we might see a revisit in the future.
Yeah, I would hope to see a revisit in the future. Blowing flash for basically just a teleport doesn't always feel good as the jungler. I always like to say like blowing a flash for a flash on a laner feels really good. However, obviously the Azir mobility is really, really, really good and really strong. Wow, Kiba Boy is super, super low off some of these trades. Looks like Retail Row may be knocking off some of those nerves as this lane state is unfolding. Was able to get out of the first gank without dying, and is now sitting in a relatively comfortable state in lane as we're going to see Kiba Boy take it back. I imagine we're going to see a TP. There it comes out. But interestingly enough, other than that one gank, we're sort of just seeing full clears out of these junglers, interestingly enough. I think both of these junglers can make things happen early, but they're also junglers that just scale very well into the game in terms of just being great utility champions. But yeah, we're seeing an extended sequence. Oh, excuse me, it's not an extended sequence out of Skarner. Both Skarner and Xin Zhao got the back off. But curious to see when and where they start applying pressure. I think both of these champions can heavily influence lane states and matchups. So curious to see when they put their foot down.
It looks like it might be around those neutral objectives. The first spawn of Grubs, the first spawn of the Drake as well. I just want to make the point on when we're talking about the Skarner, it's just so much better for Pakapal in this game. We had our criticisms about the Warwick. This champion, much more reliable, can deal a good amount of damage despite being in that tank role, and is one of the most notorious tanks in the entire game right now, has been for many patches. So Pakapal looking for a ton of value on this pick, looking to be that impenetrable front line alongside Espada. When they get those ornaments going as well, they are going to be a scary team. We see Sailor taking away this Drake, and it doesn't look like anyone from Syndicate Coke is really aware that this is going down, or if they are, they just don't seem to be ready to make a response play.
Feels a little indecisive from Syndicate Coke. We saw Pakapal and Frozen Spuds kind of just waiting around. No one hits that vision cone until after the dragon goes down. And so that's going to be a free objective over to the side of Omega Gaming Fever. I think Frozen Spuds' idea was more to try to help the Azir out. Aurora, Kiba Boy on the Aurora was level 6, while Retail Row was still level 5. And that's a huge window for the Aurora to go for a solo kill. So helping the Azir get through that scary moment is nice, but a dragon is much nicer.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there, Potatoes. It looks like Spuds went up to meet Pakapal in the jungle there to possibly make some mid lane roam. I think there was an understanding that they might be doing Dragon as Pakapal was standing near that blast cone. But as soon as you see Spuds move up, if I'm Pakapal, I'm hitting that blast cone to check the vision, right? Because the enemy team might think it's Spuds. You're not necessarily giving away your location just by hitting the vision cone in the jungle as soon as the enemy team sees your support move up. And we're gonna possibly get a fight here. Skarner's going in.
Here. Oh, excellent! Pullback on the Emperor's Divide is going to print 2 right over, but somehow it's Omega Fever that end up getting that first blood. It was Retail Row that put themselves out of position, and Sailor will grab that first blood again on this duelist style champion. The Xin Zhao is going to open things off in game 2. As
Naysayer.
we see a knockup, Naysayer doesn't have the flash. Remember, that's the Ishtal's impact that's going to find the stun. The healing is good, but the Senna will fall. Now the Trollgath is going to join the play here, but a double beat drop from Frozen Spuds is good. Naysayer steps too far forward and is end up going to give 2 kills over to Syndicate Coke, but Stubby able to trade one back. Flash forward from 4th to Spada. Can he find the knockup? It doesn't look like he's going to need it because the Bellows Breath will be enough. 3-2 in the extended fight for Syndicate Coke.
Wow, that started out not looking great. That was kind of the criticism I had in the last game is, Azir is not a tank. Going for these plays where you're putting yourself as the farthest member of your team in enemy territory is really risky. And, so the fight starts off pretty poorly. But as we see in a little bit here, it feels like Naysayer gets a little bit of that Senna stat greed. You hit the one ability, you want to get another proc so you can get those souls, but that is a dangerous thing to do sometimes as the Skarner shows up, and then the AoE healing and shielding from Seraphine really carries this fight towards the back end. Stubby has to blow the flash just to get this kill on Pakapal, but yeah, it ends up going the way of Syndicate Coke in the end.
Yeah, and blowing the flash only to die right after feels bad. It seems like, we're getting
Retail
more
Rose in some
fighting,
trouble.
guys.
Sailor on the Xin Zhao is looking for blood, but the Seraphine is here to keep him alive. Flash forward, Crescent Guard utilized as well. He's trying to get the damage up, but Naysayer from downtown with the Dawning Shadow is going to find that. Frozen Spud's going to fall as well. Sailor is dominating here in this game. This jungler came to play.
That's how you play it. You get in their face and you make things happen. It's the sort of Catalyst style play I wanted to see from Pakapal in game 1, and now Sailor is on that champ and doing well, as we might be seeing a dive here.
Solo Mason's out of mana. The Devour comes through. This might just be a 1-for-1 though, because DeBay so low underneath the tower. Is the last tower shot going to do enough? It is not. Oh my goodness, great juggling of the aggro there. Potatoes, it's Omega Fever that find that dive.
And just after Syndicate Coke gets the early play in their favor, Omega Fever takes things into their own hands, goes much more aggressive with the Sailor going deep in the enemy jungle. And off of Frozen Spud's death, Omega Fever's bot lane knows that they can go for this dive uncontested. The Sivir with no mana is, that's Sailor flashing to get that first hit in. Wow.
W flash, yeah.
I looked blind too. That's impressively aggressive from Sailor.
Wait, was it blind?
I might be. He knew Azir was there, but
there was the ward came down.
There was no ward there.
That is insanity.
It's I mean, it's a good prediction on the Azir's movement. I can see. Oh, does he have vision? I don't know if that's a spectator bug or what, but
I don't think he had vision at that point.
I don't think he should have had vision, but yeah, it's just good prediction. You know your enemy's move speed. You got their every move downloaded into your brain, and Sailor plays that amazingly to get 2 kills, plus the eventual dive later.
Yeah, I really like I like the aggression a lot from the Xin Zhao. Like I was saying before, it's what I wanted to see out of the Warwick. It's what the Warwick does best early game, and now we see Sailor just doing it better.
Naysayer's rooted, double encore going to connect onto the Omega Fever bot lane. Naysayer, no flash is going to drop, but Sailor is here. This very strong Xin Zhao, great impale, is going to stop the wind becomes lightning from coming through, but there's the audacious charge from such long range. Sailor has got their 3rd kill of the game, looking for more here, chasing down the Skarner, chasing down the Seraphine. Frozen Spuds has flash, but Stubby's here with the teleport, and DeBay will grab that kill. Now Pakapal is going to be next between Euros, utilized from Kiba Boy. So many kills, the counter punch is fantastic. Omega Fever, they're not slowing down from game 1 to game 2.
The movements around the map from Omega Fever are so good. The teleport burned from Stubby. 4th Espada doesn't have it up, and that flank gets them a kill. It gets them a dragon, and yes, 4th Espada is getting some decent damage on these turret platings, but I think Omega Fever is very happy with how that went. 1.2 thousand gold in the lead, 2 dragons up. The game is feeling pretty good for them right now.
Yeah, it feels like Fever's out here playing chess, and Syndicate Coke is stuck playing checkers. They're just not able to make the same rotations, the same map movements. Omega Gaming Fever has no hesitation on that play, right? They understand that the TP, like you said, Potatoes, is not up for Espada on the Ornn, and they blow the TP knowing the dragon's coming up, knowing they're going to get these kills on the bot lane, and they're playing with their foot all the way down on the pedal, which I think is awesome to see. It's not necessarily a stark contrast to game 1. I think they had a lot of very well-placed early game aggression, but especially when you have a Xin Zhao on the board, especially one that's 3-1 and 4, seeing that Xin Zhao become a catalyst for early game aggression on a team that otherwise necessarily wouldn't really be super aggressive early game is exactly what you want to see, and I think they're utilizing it to great effect here.
We're seeing a difference in the Senna build from game 1 and 2. It looks like it's going to be Naysayer building that Spear of Shojin with the pickaxe and the Kindle Gem. At least that is what I'm theorizing. It's definitely not that Echoes of Helia. So we might be seeing more of a damage-oriented Senna. That could just be the preference of Naysayer. That could also be Omega Fever changing up their style of what they want to do with the Senna based on the way that their composition's rolling. But what's interesting to me the most is it really feels like their team is exactly the same in essence and in functionality from what they had in game number 1. So I wonder why they opted in for that difference, but that's something very important to point out.
I think that might be actually going into a Black Cleaver to really enable the Xin Zhao. You know, if you can shred the armor of that Orin into that Skarner, the Xin Zhao gets to do a lot of work. As now there's a fight in the bottom lane with Stubby hitting the Q, but it's not really going to be followed up too much as there's no one else in the area, and the bot lane from Syndicate Coke is pretty slippery. I feel like this game kind of feels like emblematic of Omega Fever's run, where they're, you know, they've been the underdogs in many situations, but it feels like they're just, you know, really playing very consciously with a decisive plan. And I think when, you know, when you're in these supposed underdog positions, that's what you have to do. You know, you can't just coast by on assuming, oh, like we're gonna just get a lead by playing better. You come in with a plan, you make rotations around the map, and yeah, I think you have to make those plays very consciously and just instead of just hoping they fall into your lap.
I think that's an excellent point. And to bring it back, as maybe I won't have time to talk here, Packaball is going to stun up Stubby.
Stubby's going to get stunned by the Ishtal's impact. They're trying to take down this Cho'Gath, who is very tanky. Going to use the flash, but the Impale is going to be good enough to bring him right on back, and Stubby will fall. Kill to the 80 carry of Syndicate Coke across the map, across the pond. Syndicate Coke, or Omega Fever rather, are going to take away those grubs for themselves, but it will be a kill on the bot side for Syndicate Coke.
Yeah, notably that'll be 4 grubs as well for Omega Gaming Fever, as opposed to just 3 and 3 traded there. They were able to pick up 1 the first time. And to bring it back to my point before, as oh man, Varus, all you.
They're looking for the play. They get the Devour onto the Orin. Fourth spot, forced to flash away, but they are out of mana. Might not have enough for that Searing charge. It's a 3-person attack onto this Orin, who is so tanky, trying to hold on underneath the tower, but can't quite do it. The Bay, that entire time, was tanking the turret. Shutdown goes to the Xin Zhao. Sailor getting more money.
Sailor is becoming an absolute monster at this point. Should probably be able to dive anyone he wants. And, you know, the Tahm Kench is able to start that fight up so well with the Devour, brings the Orin in, and Fourth Espada blows the flash in what I think is kind of a futile manner. There's not really much hope of getting away from all those slows, all those dashes, and all the move speed that, you know, the Senna can offer to the team. So it's going to be a turret picked up for Omega Fever off the back of that play.
I'm worried if I start talking, some fight's going to break out again. The point I wanted to make before is we had a comment during the whatchamacallit, the MVP awards, you know, and all team placements, that Omega Gaming Fever notably was not on there as much as Syndicate Coke was. However, I think the gameplay we're seeing in Potato's point is, I'll finish this point after.
Paul should be able to get out with the Ishtal's impact. It got close. They want this tower. Can't quite get it. Stubby's holding on.
My point being that Omega Gaming Fever clearly is playing as a unit with a cohesive and coherent game plan. They're pulling the trigger at the same time, right? They're making clear communication. They understand their win cons, as opposed to Syndicate, who seems to be making, you know, sort of individualized decisions and sort of playing a little bit more solo QE than I think Fever is, and it's working to Fever's credit really well.
Frozen Spud's in some trouble. Abyssal Voyage connects, but the Skarner will be here to try and help. There's a big Encore teleport coming through now for the red side, and it's Solo Mason on the flank. Stubby's going to join this play. There's some very tanky members in the front line right now for the side of Omega Fever, and they grab the first kill to play, but here comes Fourth Espada, who finds the Searing charge onto a couple members. Stubby's taking up at the front line. Huge Emperor's Divide here from the Azir to try and pull some people back, but no one's falling yet from the side of Omega Fever. Now they finally will. It will be the Azir to fall. Debay and Kimaboy, the only ones to survive. Thus far, a 2-4-2 Sailor, critically not active in this play, is on a very long flank. Solo Mason still wants to make this happen. Does have to be very careful, though, because here comes the Abyssal Voyage. Debay now in the middle of 3. Fourth Espada is trying to peel for his squad. Flash, Crescent Guard, not going to get much effect. Able to mitigate a lot of the damage from Solo Mason is Sailor. They now want that retreat. Still with the Rift Herald in his pocket. Maybe waiting in the wings to continue, but a lot of bloodshed here bot side.
Wow, that's a nice fight for the side of Syndicate Coke. Yeah, notably absent was Sailor. Almost finds a flank towards the end and is going to get the dragon, I think, because of the back timings coming in from Syndicate Coke. But Pokeball is in the area and might be able to drive on through that wall for steal. We'll see if Omega Fever can keep the Skarner out of the pit.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if he goes for this. He does have teammates coming in, but the dragon is now at 5k health. It's going to be a close one as he's making the move now. We're going to see if he's going to try and get that smite down. He's not going to get it, but they're going to try and retreat.
Should break out here. They get the stun onto the Skarner, who's going to try and escape now with the Ishtal's impact. Fourth Espada going to miss out on the searing charge in the front line. The Between Worlds here from Kimbo Boy once again is so massive. So many low HP bars, but Sailor is down. The big carry for Omega Fever drops. That kill goes to Solo Mason, but still 4 fighting strong. Pay attention to Kimbo Boy, who's found the kill onto Espada. Now a 2-for-1 in favor of Omega Fever. Can't quite find the rupture onto Frozen Spuds. The play will stop. And 3 Drakes very close to that patented 22-23 minute soul for the Fever.
Ooh, Sailor didn't have the Crescent Guard because of that flash engage in the bottom lane earlier, I think. And so, you know, without that tool, this Xin Zhao is not nearly as tanky and does give over a big shutdown, but it's still the Dragon and it's still a team fight win overall for Omega Fever. Now this mid turret might go down, but the Tahm Kench is engaging.
He's flashing forward. He didn't find the Abyssal Voyage onto Solo Mason, who uses On the Hunt to give his team some move speed to escape. The beat drop will go wide. Tongue Lash lands. A Root lands as well. Barrier utilized here from Solo Mason, but it's not enough. Kimba Boy is able to get that kill. Excellent setup from Naysayer to start that playoff, as well as Debay on this Tahm Kench. Omega Fever keep their mid tower alive.
Ooh, a lot of back and forth here. I'm also just noticing we have a 505 Tahm Kench with 200 stacks that's going right back in.
Oh my goodness. Emperor's Divide goes wide, but the Encore will connect. The Impale is good as well. Dawning Shadow for some shielding. The Ishtal's impact will bring Debay closer to the tower, but this Tahm Kench, this is a tanky frog. Holy crap, he tanks it all. And Sailor now joins the play. The Root going to connect onto the Skarner. Stubby is here to escort everyone out as well. We are seeing chaos erupt all over the map. That Rift Herald still in the hands of the Xin Zhao.
That's 3 ults burned to try and pick the Tahm Kench, and I don't think that's who you want to go for. The initial Emperor's Divide does miss, which might throw the rest of the plan off. But even then, Pokepal going for the Flash Impale, I think really aggressive on a target that's so hard to kill when that Sen is there. And so Tahm Kench gets to keep that 5-0 score line after all of that.
Yeah, this is a Grasp of the Undying, 221 bonus HP Heartsteel on this Tahm Kench. This Tahm Kench is hyper accelerated at this point in the game.
We're
as
seeing
getting
more
more
worlds from
action.
Kimba Boy. Pakapal is low. He gets the Ishtal's impact onto Sailor, but the Crescent Guard will keep the Xin Zhao alive. They're angry that they took their tier 1 in the mid lane. They will not let that go without a fight. And Sailor grabs 2 kills. The Baron is up in 10 seconds. Jungler down for Syndicate Coke. Could we see the Purple Worm taken right off the spawn?
I think they've got the damage to do it, and Senna can keep that team very healthy. You know, you've got a Fed Xin Zhao, you've got the Cho'Gath ultimate alongside the Smite to help secure things. It should be going down, I'd have to imagine. It's very hard to find a way in for the side of Syndicate Coke when these frontliners are so strong.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have Pakapal be able to get here in time. This thing's already at 6.5k HP. Frozen Spuds and Retail Row trying to do their best to stall or force Fever off this dragon as a TP is going to come down and a fight may be happening, Ferris.
Encore is going to land onto all 4, though. That's massive. It is Sailor to grab the Baron. The question is, can they stay alive to keep it? Debay is going to use that Devour to try and keep Sailor alive with the shield who flashes over the wall to safety. There is 3 Barons live. Maybe only 2 now for Omega Fever as they fall. The Tahm Kench. 5-0. Big bounty. Give it to Solo Mason. Lethal tempo stacked up. He's going to survive for a little bit longer. Abyssal Voyage going to bring him all the way over here. He actually has the Baron powered recall. This could be the great escape.
No.
Can they get him in time? It looks like they should be able to. There is the Boomerang Blade shut down to Solo Mason. And at the very least, Syndicate Coke, they get a little bit of gold for themselves.
Solo Mason getting that shutdown is so big. And that is a team fight win that Syndicate Coke desperately needed. The Encore was huge in this play. Yeah, the Seraphine, it's 4 people with the ultimate. And that's what sets them up for this play. Retail Row follows up with the engage. And it's... yeah, I mean, that's massive. Now, Retail Row does go down, I think, towards the end here. You know, going very deep for the engage, but this time it works out in Syndicate Coke's favor. Still 2 Baron buffs alive on the side of Omega Fever. And also, the Bay is just so hard to chase down. These Sivir autos are barely doing any damage, but now that Solo Mason got the shutdown, that might be a different story.
Yeah, it feels like Sivir in the last little chase down was throwing feathers instead of blades at that Tom Kench. Like we said before, it's just so hard to kill. And while gold is still in the favor of Omega Gaming Fever, and they were able to pick up the Baron, that clearly was a good fight. I think the shutdown gold, like you said, Potatoes, is massive on Sivir. I think, you know, even though it's not perfect, it's an opening, as we may see a mid lane fight break out again.
Stubby is going to get locked up, but this Cho'Gath is so tanky. It's the 2 tanks that are being hit right now. Pakapal taking a good chunk of damage as well, down to 60% HP around this Chemtech Soul once again that is live and on the Rift. It is Syndicate Coke. They are trying to make their way in. The Drake has been started up here for Omega Fever. We are going to start this dance. Pakapal, Ishtal's Impact, that is going to be canceled. Waiting on to seeing which team will pull the trigger first. Will it be a Call of the Forge God? Will it be Sailor to jump right on in? Pakapal with the Blast Cone goes in, is half HP. Beat drops go wide, but Sailor's going to start things off. Here comes the Encore. It's only going to connect onto 1. Kimboboy gets the first kill of the fight. That's the jungler down. Make that 2 now as Stubby flash forward and taking down Solo Mason. Omega Fever, this is your time. I think everyone on the Rift has the fever, and they grab the soul, and they're looking to start the march towards the enemy base as well.
Kimboboy played that fight so patiently, and I just really wanted to shout that out because I thought that was essential to how they played that. Just waiting on the other side of the wall, even though he's on vision, as soon as the initial engage comes through from Omega Fever, you can see Syndicate Coke's eyes are all on that side of the fight. And so Kimboboy is able to get in there with the Between Worlds, deal so much damage, slow all of Syndicate Coke down, and it's a big win for them in the team fight. They get the soul as well, which is going to make these tanky members pretty much unkillable. This game is now, I think, quite decisively in Omega Fever's hands.
Yeah, I think akin to game 1, we're approaching that point. Oh, Pakapal! Interesting engage.
They're going to go right on in.
No.
They said, you crossed the line there, pal. That's our friend.
No.
That's our buddy. How dare you try and cancel his recall? Sailor's just going berserk, but has to use the Crescent Guard and the Devour to keep himself alive. He's going to spin him right back out and has that shield now. Off the cooldown. Here's the Between Worlds. Fourth spot going to walk that one out. Pakapal is going to drop. Stubby is going to be one to grab that kill with the Feast. +1 in stacks to the Cho'Gath. And it was Syndicate Coke that said, we're stopping your backs. And Omega Fever said, okay, we'll just take some more gold.
I think it's got. Sorry, go ahead, Potatoes.
I think it's got to feel a little bad to the Solo Mason here right now. You know, he does so much damage, but the Sivir auto attack range is pretty short, and that puts you in a dangerous position whenever you're trying to hit these frontliners. I think he's got the damage to do it, but the side of Omega Fever is just so strong here.
Oh man, yeah, that Between Worlds ultimate is absolutely just fight warping. Solo Mason got knocked up and slowed down via the ultimate from Kimboboy, and then just gets flash ulted on by Stubby's Cho'Gath. There feels like there's virtually no counterplay there. It's just such a game warping, fight warping rather, pick Aurora in this mid lane. I was thinking at game 1 because I know it wasn't necessarily the flashy, huge scoreboard pick that we saw like in the Viego. I believe it was 10-1-9 Sailor's Viego. But Aurora is so effective in these fights. We see it banned at the highest level of pro play in first phase. If I'm Syndicate Coke, you know, regardless of what happens this game, right? They're clearly not in the driver's seat, but the door is not fully closed on them, right? But regardless of what happens, I think maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had within you know, sort of the ranks of the team about, is this a pick we want to keep letting Kimboboy have? Kimboboy's ultimates on Aurora have been disgusting every single fight, and I think it's really to the detriment of Syndicate Coke's ability to play the game well.
Sailor is going crazy right now, but he may have gone too far forward. This is the thing about Xin Zhao, though. You press the Crescent Guard, you don't take a whole lot of damage. DeBay's actually going to flash forward and keep his jungler alive. At this point, it's just wallet difference. Sailor initiates the 1 versus 4, and Sailor's the one walking out of that fist fight alive. There is a couple of seconds left on this next Baron. It looks like it is going to be Omega Fever to turn tails towards that once they clear out this wave. there is a one-person advantage for them. Although Pakapal is still alive, maybe there's a chance for Syndicate Coke if they want to make themselves a play. Sailor has found Pakapal, though. Look at the damage that this Xin Zhao does. They're diving right underneath the tower, and the tower does absolutely nothing to the might of the Fever. Debay continuing to tank for the team, goes into the shield to keep himself alive. That gray health is so effective, and now they march towards the Baron.
Oh man, it feels like, what can you do? These members are so tanky on the side of Omega Fever, and with the Senna keeping them topped off, it feels like they can kind of just play like 4v5, have those frontliners eat the damage, they just heal it up, and then the whole time Aurora can just wait around and jump over with an ultimate and instantly turn a fight on its head. We saw their Sailor looked like he was caught out on the Xin Zhao, but with the Crescent Guard is able to buy time for Tahm Kench to jump over the wall, for Aurora to jump over the wall, and within moments, what's like a 4v1 turns into a 4v3, and Omega Fever likes those odds.
Yeah, that felt relatively illegal for Sailor to be doing there, had it not been for the fact that they are, at this point in the game, monstrously ahead. This is a massive Xin Zhao into a significantly behind Skarner, a massive Aurora into a significantly behind Azir. This is almost 400 stacks on the Tahm Kench. I'm curious to see, I know it's not on the screen right now, what Senna's stacks are, what this healing and shielding ability is coming out of this Senna, but they have all of the tools to close this game out. And if you're Syndicate Coke, your chances are looking slim. Again, nothing's impossible in this game. However, I think they got to start thinking not only about, okay, what are the few ways that we can get back into this? How can we hold on for as long as possible? But what do we change moving forward? Because clearly something's got to adjust. As another fight's happening, Ferris.
Another one is breaking out. At this point, if you're Omega Fever, you're taking any fight that you can get. And Syndicate Coke doesn't have a whole lot of options as Retail Rose in a choke point has to flash away. Pakapal won't be so lucky, though. Big Impale comes through. Encore rolls through 4 people and the Call of the Forge God. They get everything they want, but the Between Worlds is just going to say it does not matter. The Fever are running amok. Frozen Spots is the only one left alive. They're waiting for the wave, and this should be the wave that ends the game. The death timers are long. OGF looking to go up 2-0 and put Syndicate Coke's backs against the wall.
Ooh, Omega Fever feels pretty much unkillable there. It's, you find maybe a hit into the wall. You hit the massive Impale, large ult from Seraphine, but none of it matters. Like, that feels like everything you want in how you start a fight. But yeah, the wallet difference is too major. Omega Fever is on the brink of closing this game out. I don't think Syndicate Coke's respawn timers are going to matter as they're on to the Nexus here.
They're going to try, but ultimately, like you said, not going to matter. OGF is going to go up 2-0, and Syndicate Coke, the team that was expected to be on top of this series and be the driving force, is now down to series point, gentlemen. What do we do if we're Syndicate Coke in this situation? I know it's scary as heck being a player having been in an O2 situation like this before.
It's really terrifying. You have to reverse sweep an Omega Fever team that has really clicked in the playoffs. This team was good in the regular season. We established that, placing number 3 in Group B. But this level of performance, this level of dominance, Omega Fever have just found their groove at the right time, and they are 1 game away from becoming our Conqueror League champions in fall 2024. We can see the gold graph. It is ever so slightly going into Omega Gaming Fever's way, and then that red tsunami piles up. That upside down mountain of red gold is able to surge. And in this one, I have to really say, Sailor performed like a beast, spearheading all of the plays for OGF, making things happen, doing the damage. You can see the second most in the game behind Solo Mason, who was trying to do their best, but couldn't quite get to those item spikes to be able to eat through that massive front line. We are going to cut to a break now, and when we return, it will be game number 3 on the horizon for the side of Syndicate Coke. They have one last chance. They have no room for any more errors, and for Omega Gaming Fever, just one more win will get them that championship, where you're going to see how game 3 plays out right after this.
see you, peekaboo, I see you, looking at me, looking at you. Hold up, where you going? What you doing? Who you seeing? What you need? What you want? I said, without you by my side, my side, my side. Without you by my side. One time from side to side. Without you by my side, I can't go outside. Without you by my side, I can't go outside. Without you by my side, I can't go outside. One time from side to side.
Welcome back to the grand finals of the Titan Conqueror League, and it is do or die for Syndicate Coke as they are down 2-0 to Omega Gaming Fever, who have been on an absolute tear this entire series. We're going to see if they can bring it back. They have to pull out that reverse sweep to win here. It's going to be tough here, Potatoes.
Syndicate Coke has their backs against the wall, but this is a team that has shown a lot of consistency throughout their regular season and throughout their playoffs. So I do think they have a shot at fighting back here. We've got a sub in the mid lane, but for me, I'd really like to just see some simple changes in draft. I think we've seen how effective that Senna Tom Kench can be in the bottom lane. We've seen the Aurora have huge impact in both games as well, and I think at least one of those has got to go.
Yeah, it's do or die. If you're Syndicate Coke, right? This is it. You can't expect the same results from doing the same thing. They got to make changes, be it in draft, be it in their gameplay, shore things up. This is it. If they're gonna not lose here, it's win this game. If they're gonna win the full series, it's a reverse sweep. So they've got their work cut out for them.
They absolutely do. And while we wait for the Game 3 draft to come online, we do have the Kiss, Marry, Kill segment for this week to present to all of you. A little bit of comedic relief, especially for you Syndicate Coke fans who are a little bit stressed out right now. So we got our picks. It's pretty similar. We got Nutcracko, Festive Maokai, and Reindeer Kog'Maw as the choices here. Very holiday themed. And rightfully so. You can see our picks here. Let's start with explanations, and Swifties, who isn't on the graphic, will get your explanation as well. But let's start with you, Potatoes. You got yours here, very similar to myself and Chris. Why did you select these choices?
So for me, I mean, starting things off, I feel like the kill Nutcracker was kind of an easy choice. You know, I don't know. That's like a psycho clown. I don't really want anything to do with that. I'm going with the Merry Maokai. You know, he comes with lots of gifts, a lot of cute little critters and saplings and stuff. You know, once again, that's just an easy win in my book. And then Reindeer Kog'Maw, that's getting my kiss. He's got that big red nose. I think it would just, you know, giving a kiss, a little boop on the nose. Sounds like a fun little time.
Excellent stuff. Now, how about you, Swifty? Give us your reasonings and what your picks actually are for this Kiss, Marry, Kill.
So I'll start. I'm also going to kiss Kog'Maw, and I want to make the caveat point that I'm not going to be kissing that mouth. That thing looks like it has seen atrocities that would shatter the minds of mere mortals. So I'm gonna give him like a kiss atop his fuzzy little head because other than the mouth, he's a cute little guy. You know, he's just a little guy. So that's my kiss. My Mary, it's got to be Maokai. He looks huggable. You know, he could be Big Spoon really well. You know, and then I'm gonna kill Shaco because anyone who doesn't kill Shaco, I don't trust, and we can't be friends.
Well, there you have it. I mean, I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I'll give my reasonings now. Kill Nutcracker because he is a Nutcracker. That guy, he's got the swords. We all know how crazy Shaco is as well. I think it just makes perfect sense. You don't want to risk your life here in these types of situations, although kissing Kog'Maw might be a life-threatening situation in its own right. There's risk here. There's nothing we can do. There's really dangerous things that are happening. But yeah, the Maokai things, yeah, it looks like he'll give some very nice gifts as well. Looks like a happy guy to spend, I guess, the rest of your life with.
He's a tree.
Marry. He's a tree. So there you go. There you have it. That was Kiss, Marry, Kill. Hope you guys all enjoyed this week's segment. We're into the draft for game number 3. So now transitioning to more of that serious note here. Potatoes, let's see if Syndicate Coke end up banning those key picks that have been so successful for the Fever in the last 2.
And they're going to stick on the blue side here. So, okay, there's the Aurora coming through. That's been very impactful for the side of Omega Fever. I think winning them a lot of team fights. With that off the table, you know, we'll see what they decide to go with in the middle lane. But I already like the adaptation there. You know, if it's... yeah, it's a powerful pick. But there, I think Omega Fever has had a lot of picks that have gotten a lot of impact. So there's the Tahm Kench gone. Sun is still open. She could be paired with a different tank in the bottom lane, but I do think with Tahm Kench gone, it's not as much of like the premier pairing that they want. And you know, the Ornn still open. I'm guessing that might be what they first pick. It's been pretty good for Espada. I think it you know, hasn't won them in a game yet, but they are going to go with that.
Yeah, I don't think the Ornn has been the issue. Part of me maybe would have wanted to see like a Senna be one and sort of slam it for themselves. I know that, like you said, Tahm Kench isn't necessarily the only thing that can be paired with a fasting Senna. They have played Poppy. I know that lane works. But bring it back to that Aurora ban and the TK ban. I'm very happy to see those bans. I maybe would have preferred Viego over the Ahri ban. Take off the things that I think have really shut them out as a team. But we're going to see Seraphine come out, taking it back over out of the hands of Frozen Spuds and into the hands of Naysayer here. So going to be a sort of double enchanter bot lane. I'm curious to see. I'm assuming it'll still be fasting Senna in this lane, but we'll see how Syndicate Coke responds to that.
It's going to be really tough. They're going to go for something really aggressive like the Nautilus. So it could be detrimental if they can't get that engage that they want off in the lane. They can't find those 2v2s because the Seraphine and Senna, they scale really hard. Very similar to how it works with the tanks, although this time it's just that Enchanter and Seraphine can be that menace in the bot lane. Perma clearing waves, taking that farm. Senna is still fasting. They are still scaling. Udyr, I likely going to go into the hands of Sailor in this one. And we also have to point out OTF27 subbing in for Retail Row for Syndicate Coke. So they've made that adjustment here. And I'm wondering, since the last time we saw OTF play for Syndicate Coke was an absolute monster on that Yone, I wonder if the Fever end up taking away. They don't. So I'm looking for that pick here for OTF side.
Yeah, that substitution is going to change the dynamic of the mid lane a lot, I think, because from what I remember, OTF does lean a little more towards those engagey melee champions, very different from something like the Azir. Now, it feels like Omega Fever is kind of going for a bit of a death ball comp. They have a lot of enchanter power down in that bottom lane. If they pick up something that can, kind of run at you, like what they already have with the Udyr, I think that's going to be very potent. And they do lock in the Cho'Gath, which plays kind of similarly to that. You can just have an unkillable, unstoppable wall that sets up something like that Seraphine ult. Now Syndicate Coke's going to respond with the Jarvan, giving them some more engage, but I do think, they need to make these picks happen fast. If your CC's landing onto like the Cho'Gath or the Udyr instead of onto those backline squishies, they have a lot of ways to counter engage and fight back against that engage.
Oh, this is interesting. We see the J4 and the Yone picked up B4, B5 for Syndicate Coke. I really like the J4 in response to the Udyr. In my head, I was thinking something like, what can compete with an Udyr in that like sustain? My brain as a Trundle player typically goes to Trundle, but it doesn't necessarily match into like Cho'Gath and Seraphine Senna particularly well, but the J4 has that lockdown. Udyr likes to go Ghost. And if you can box out an Udyr and stop him from slowing and damaging the rest of your, critical members, I think it's a very potent pick. And I think, again, Pakapal, we got to see Pakapal step up and play something high tempo, and a Jarvan just might be that.
They have such good team fight potential, although the glaring problem, and I think this might have crossed both of your minds here, Potatoes
Magic
and Swifty, it's magic damage. They got none of it. Unless, and I don't think this is going to be the case because it's press the attack, it's not Hail of Blades on the Varus. But AP Varus would be a cook here. And honestly, it would be so good. I don't know how many people in chat or any of you two are AP Varus connoisseurs, but I love that in the niche. It could be really good here, but what's not really good is giving first blood to the Seraphine. What was going through your head there, Pakapal? He walks into the death brush and he will fall.
You want to get early vision, of course, but that's really risky walking up with no teammates. They have so many ways to make a pick happen. If Seraphine starts E, if Senna's got the W, and of course we saw the Cho'Gath Q there, all of which can spell certain doom at level 1. Now, I do like that Syndicate Coke's bot lane is taking a bit more of an aggressive stance and not just trying to play the early game as, neutral. I think that's going to be really important for them because that Senna Seraphine bot lane is really scary in the scaling department. You don't want to let them just farm up, and so if they can maybe blow a summoner spell or something here, we'll see if Omega Fever's bottom lane respects this threat.
Uh-oh, are we going to see the hook come out? We
We're
are.
see a Dredge line come through. Naysayer's going to take some damage. Hail of Arrows down as well. Solo Mason getting some good poke down onto this Senna to start the lane.
I wanted to make a point, and maybe as an in-joke, Potatoes, to you, but that Jarvan death, I like to call that the Swifty special, trying to get 2 deep vision and then dying level 1. I'm pretty sure you've seen me do that 8,000 times. But it's not a position you want to be in. But again, it's not necessarily the end of the world. It happened early enough that Jarvan's clear isn't totally screwed. Kill goes on to the Seraphine, which looks to be the CSing component of this fasting Senna lane. So the Seraphine will be building items. It's not super ideal to have kills go onto them, but certainly not the end of the world for Syndicate Coke. They can pick themselves up by the bootstraps and then
Flashed forward, but the root lands underneath the tower. It's a disaster. No, Frozen Spuds falls. Naysayer gets the kill. They're trying to get aggressive. I respect this out of Syndicate Coke, but time and time again, OGF, they have their number and they get another one for themselves.
OGF weathers the storm of that early pressure, the early level 2, with the W from the Senna laning. That was an interesting interaction where the Nautilus hook still went off, bringing him into tower while he was rooted, and then Debay follows up with a stun, and that was, I think, 3 full turret shots, and Nautilus might be, a bit of a tank, but in the early game, he cannot withstand that.
Yeah, it's a great look. I think that's clear to us that this is a lane that wants to be aggressive into the Senna Sera. It's just super unfortunate that interaction worked the way it did. I still think that shouldn't change the way that they view and attack this lane, right? They can't let themselves get sort of walked on and sort of shut out as they move into the mid game and late game here by a scaling lane. As Ornn is gonna try and run out of this one. Taylor might be backing off, but we're getting some action in the bot lane.
Paka Paul wants to get involved in the bot side. There's the kill to Solo Mason, getting something back for themselves is Syndicate Coke. They're not giving up here. Nice flash, double beat drop from Debay to be able to get out of this gank, but a kill onto their AD carry and something back for themselves after the disastrous 2 plays that happened in the early game.
Syndicate Coke's bot lane kind of reaping the reward of the one good thing that happened on the earlier play, which is that when Nautilus threw the hook, the Senna did have to flash to get away from it, and now if Espada's in danger again.
Or if the Espada's in trouble, has flash, is going to use it to get away from the rupture, and that will be flashed down on the Syndicate Coke top laner for the next 5 minutes.
We saw how impactful those blown flashes can be with Naysayer's death in the bottom lane, and Debay also having to flash, so Paka Paul might want to pay another visit down here, try to get the dragon afterwards, you know, something like that to continue pushing the pace of this game, because I do think Syndicate Coke really needs to come into the mid game strong this time around.
I want to point something out actually that I just noticed as that top play was going on, but Sailor on Udyr opted to take Flash this game instead of Ghost. Ghost being the more prominent and prevalent summoner spell.
No.
Keeper Boy likewise has to burn that Flash.
That Valkyrie was canceled. That is so unfortunate. I play a lot of Quirky in solo queue. That is the most frustrating thing ever, is the fact that your Valkyrie gets canceled by a little CC like the knockup on the Yone there. So has to burn the flash, is going to be without that. Good heads up play from Frozen Spuds to make an impact not only in the lane, but also elsewhere on the map for Syndicate Coke. And yeah, flash on the Udyr here, like you were mentioning, Swifty, is going to be able to close the gap with the Blazing Ram if it's that very small distance to get the stun onto a key target. But running around in the fights won't be as easy without that, as now Stubby in some trouble here. Paka Paul all across the rift trying to make these plays happen. Flash forced from Stubby. The response should be the Dragon.
Yet another flash blown by Paka Paul, getting a lot of value out of the Jarvan, which is exactly what Syndicate Coke needed to see this in this early game. Now, we'll see if they can continue to follow up on it, you know, tracking those timers, making sure you come back for a gank before that flash comes up again is going to be absolutely crucial here. But notably on your screen, you can see Sailor and Naysayer taking away this dragon before the grubs have spawned, so before Syndicate Coke can really trade anything on the other side of the map. Yes, they got Stubby's flash, but as of right now, that doesn't translate to a long-term advantage like that dragon does.
Yep, I like the trade in response. It's still a very close game here. But yeah, like we were saying, a lot of flashes blown, and bring it back to the Udyr flash rather than the ghost. I think it's important to note that the reasoning behind this must be because of Pakapul's ultimate on the Jarvan. A huge counter to Udyr is Jarvan in the sense that if he gets boxed out in a fight, Udyr cannot do what Udyr does, which is run around a fight, it's stun up targets, tank up a lot of damage, and do max HP burn AoE slowing, right? And if you're stuck in a Cataclysm, can't really do that. However, like you said, Ferris, it does limit the potential of the Udyr to then do those things. So in picking the Jarvan, they've already sort of kneecapped the full capability of the Udyr here. So for me, that's a great start, even outside of gameplay, just as a response that Pakapul has into Sailor, who has been just so dominant this series.
It is another dragon for Omega Fever, and those dragons have been so crucial to their success in this series. Getting souls, getting both Chemtech souls has been fantastic for them. Won't be a Chemtech soul this time around, as we do see that being the first dragon to fall. But if the stacking can continue here for Omega Fever, definitely going to be fantastic for them in their hopes to win this one and be our champions in this game. But very close. Syndicate Coke, they are fighting. They are making plays happen. And we're almost going to see okay, that's really unfortunate. It's not the full reset. Thankfully, Riot Games is a little bit more lenient to that in recent patches. But level 6 is very soon to come online. Pakapul now has it. Going to be able to have that Cataclysm online for future plays.
I think this is the best Syndicate Coke has kind of looked in the early games. You know, we're seeing a lot more deliberate movements around the map from Frozen Spuds as doesn't engage in top lane.
Stubby's in trouble. Stubby doesn't have flash. Frozen Spuds is here as well. He's saying, what the heck is the Nautilus doing in my lane? And a Jarvan on top of it. Gonna try and hit the minions because he knows his time is gone. And he will fall. And that will be one more for Syndicate Coke.
No assist for Frozen Spuds. Feels a little bad to roam all the way up there and not really get anything out of it. But, you know, just the presence alone helps ensure that that kill goes their way. And Solo Mason's okay for now, but there might be a dive coming through in the next few seconds.
Yeah,
they got a very small window. Encore is going to go wide. They are going to flash the Chains of Corruption, though. Double beat drop connects. The question is, do they have the damage? This could be disastrous for them. They're going to have to get out. They get the heal. Pac-a-Paul in the mid lane has taken down Boy. Syndicate Coke this time are out-tempoing their opponents. They want to try and find success in game 3, and they get Naysayer's flash as well.
What a beast.
Solo Mason has, I think, looked like probably the best performing player on Syndicate Coke's side. We've seen the aggressive flashes earlier, a great defensive flash there to weather the storm on that dive and blow several enemy flashes, almost getting 2 kills back as well. But Omega Fever, to their credit, did a good job of juggling the aggro despite how well Solo Mason played it. And here now we can see the play they made onto Boy, whose flash was down from earlier. Pac-a-Paul making visits to every lane, taking full advantage of the early strength of this Jarvan.
Yeah, I'm really glad that, and I know not to necessarily harp on it, but I'm really glad Pac-a-Paul's on the Jarvan. Such a great pick, particularly for his playstyle. We already see him performing significantly better than the previous 2 games. It's a fantastic pick in nearly any composition. It has great potential to control the pace of the game and to make any losing lane or even lane just a hard winning lane. So love to see that happen. And again, Solo Mason. Potatoes, I gotta agree with you. I think Solo Mason this series has been the shining light of Syndicate Coke. I don't think even in 2 losses I've seen a performance on this Varus or previously on the Sivir that disappointed me. Even in fights, like Solo Mason was really 1v9ing a lot of this stuff. Obviously, they were so far behind that necessarily nothing came to fruition because of it. But I think Solo Mason, in a situation where they have the ability and the space to play like a beast, is going to absolutely warp the state of this game. So really excited to see that dive 1v3 play happen and Solo Mason make it out of it.
Someone who's very quietly been having themselves a solid game is OTF 27 on Syndicate Coke. We saw in their semi-final matchup how good OTF can be on this champion. Is ahead in the CS over the Corki as well in that melee versus range matchup. Let's look topside. We're going to have a 2v2 breakout. Udyr and Cho'Gath versus the Ornn and the Jarvan. The Rupture is going to land, and Pac-a-Paul is going to be stunned up. The Dawning Shadow as well is going to provide some shielding, and gone is the Jarvan. Stubby with the feast is able to get the +1 right there. The Cho'Gath is on the board.
That chain of CC is brutal. Sets up the Dawning Shadow all the way from bot lane, and yeah, with between the silence and the knockup and the stun from the Udyr, Jarvan can't get out of there in time and isn't able to drop the ult to try and get some damage down, maybe set forth a spot up for a trade kill either. And there was a little bit of a whiff on the initial engage too, but I think that death is not going to matter too much. Omega Fever is going to go start up their second dragon of the game, but Syndicate Coke seems poised to trade the grubs on the other side. Doesn't look like there's much of a contest coming through, so this will just be another objective trade. I think it plays to Syndicate Coke's strengths a little bit here. Obviously, you don't want your opponent to stack dragon when their late game is so strong, but I think Syndicate Coke has the only real side laning champion in the Yone who can take advantage of these grubs that they're about to secure.
Yeah, Potatoes, I gotta agree with you there. I think the trade's fine. I think that death is not the end of the world. I think if that Demacian Standard and Q land as... Oh, nice buffer, Frozen Spuds. Very well done. But I think if that Demacian Standard lands and they get the knock-up and it's followed by the ultimate, the Cataclysm, out of Jarvan, I think the Cho'Gath has a higher chance of dying there before Udyr can get anything in there. A great job from Sailor to play out of vision and then capitalize on a counter gank that went a little... awry for the side of Syndicate Coke. But again, they're able to trade their grubs, right? They're not able to capitalize on the spot play. We're still in a very close game state. Syndicate Coke is, however, up about, 600, 700 gold here. And like you said before, Ferris, a silent winner is OTF, our substitute in the mid lane, just doing really, really well. Has been able to pick up a kill with Pac-a-Paul's Jarvan, is up 24 CS, and as Yone goes later on in the game, will be a significant threat moving into these side lane objectives.
Fate Sealed is going to be so important to provide backline access for Syndicate Coke. The combination that I want to see in these plays, Cataclysm, Fate Sealed. If there's no flashes on Omega Fever's side, it's foolproof. You're going to get an engage every single time. So as long as OTF can hit that ability on the stationary targets, which we know is a player who can absolutely do that. So I'm looking towards these next fights. third dragon in 3.5 minutes. Barring any action that happens beforehand, that is definitely going to be a moment when Syndicate Coke, they want to be on their item spikes. They want to be very close, if not at that Bork spike for their Yone, and try and get something back and prevent that dragon stacking that we have been alluding to that's been so impactful for OGF in this series from coming through.
Akapal looking for the lane gank, was spotted on a ward though, so Omega Fever's bot lane gonna play back at their turret, just catch this wave as it comes into them, and now Akapal is on the reset. Yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot of these champions get their backs off, hit those first items. I'm curious what you think about the static shiv from Solo Mason, Ferris.
I'm going to be honest. I don't like it very much. I don't think this is an item that Varus really enjoys, barring, I think if you're going to pick any item for Varus, it has to be either the Blade of the Rune King, or if you don't like Bork right now, it has to be Kraken Slayer for that tank shred. Static Shiv is just not an item. It's more of a Zeri item. It's more of an AP Kaisa item. It's not as great, although it does contend in the wave clear up against the Seraphine, so could have been maybe what Solo Mason is thinking about in that build. But we're going to have to see as the game does progress and see what he ends up building into next.
Yeah, I'm actually curious if leaning into the on-hit magic damage is going to be a little bit helpful for Solo Mason's Varus here. Like we said before, there isn't a lot of magic damage, virtually none for the side of Syndicate Coke. We've got a little bit out of Yone because Yone, just by, I think his passive, deals a little bit of mixed damage. Obviously, Orin has a little bit of magic damage, but he's more so a tank than he is a damage dealer. But, I mean, Jarvan, Varus, and Nautilus aren't really outputting crazy amounts of, I mean, really any of them, magic damage. I'm curious if leaning possibly, like we said before, AP Varus is a spicy and interesting pick. If we're going to see like a Wit's End or a Gwynsu's or anything like that, to at least give them a little bit of magic damage. I'm curious, Ferris, I'll ask you again if you think that's viable in the slightest.
I would think so. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen the Static Shiv Varus before. We see the Blighting Moat or whatever the heck that item's name is. Not sure what that's building into either. So I'm really excited to see what it actually is going to be. But I would assume Ginsu's, you just keep playing the on-hit route, Wit's End, all those things that you're talking about here, Swifty. As Static Shiv now, without the crit, like it has been for many patches, is just that standard on-hit item. Like I said, not my favorite for Varus, but you still opt into that route, I would assume, here with this build. So I think that's what we're looking towards, and the Varus doing pretty well for themselves, getting very close to that 10 CS per minute mark, OTF as well. So very strong is Syndicate Coke. I'm going to jump back to my original point because this is going to come to fruition in the next 45 seconds, is that third Drake here. It's huge for OGF. It's their sole point. And for Syndicate Coke, it's finally getting to the point where they can find a fight to bring themselves a lead in this game.
Herald's gonna get dropped in the mid lane.
Also flash turn.
Yeah, that's pretty big for this fight. But the Herald will be going down, which means Syndicate Coke can retake this space. They don't have very much vision in the river, which makes this approach a little scary. But Fourth Espada and Frozen Spud's gonna lead the way. There's a hook on to Stubby now, as we might see a fight break out.
Might see a fight break out around the Drake. Not going to be
Coke has mid pressure now. They dropped that Herald a little early for my taste, as now they're in the river and contesting this play. They really should have held this a little longer if they wanted to be able to force them to either make the decision to fight or protect their mid lane turret. But now this is going to be a 5-on-5 dragon fight, Ferris.
The flashes are available for Omega Fever. They're going to have to try and get out of the Cataclysm, but they're making the play onto Sailor here. The Encore, it's only going to hit onto OTF, who does go into the Soul Unbound. Sailor is able to stay alive. Subby is taking over the front line. Huge! Three-person bait seal. That is what you wanted to see. Everyone's gone on OGF's side. Syndicate Coke, they got their fight. They get the dragon, and they're not finished yet.
Oh, man.
Syndicate Coke come alive, getting 4 kills for nothing and the dragon. Sailor has to run away and blow the flash over the wall, so really good team fighting from Syndicate Coke. Much better look than what we've seen in these previous games. Yeah, that Cataclysm set everything up there.
Yeah, just what a beautiful engage here. Sailor has to flash out of the back of the fight before Cataclysm even goes down. Ornn ult guarantees the 3-man Cataclysm with the fate sealed. Bye Omega Gaming Fever. That Fever ran far too high. That's 4 dead members. A dragon picked up. I believe they're 4K gold up. That's a massive swing off of a perfectly executed wombo combo. And Syndicate Coke is telling us, they're telling the viewers, we are not out for the count. Excellently done, Syndicate Coke. Let's see how much they can keep pressing off of this lead.
In the chaos of that fight, there is still flash for debate. There is still flash for naysayer. They could not see the fate sealed. There's so many things on their screen. This is understandable in League of Legends when so many things are going on. You're playing these carry champions that need to position well, that have to dodge so many things. There are a million things running through your mind, and the fate sealed slips. They don't use their flash. That combos with the Cataclysm. Big plays for Syndicate Coke. If I am Omega Fever and what I want to see from them, what did you learn from that fight? The combo is the win condition for Syndicate Coke, and your biggest counterplay is your flash button. Pay attention to OTF, his positioning, where he is on the map to try and avoid a play like that from going down sooner. But Syndicate Coke, they have their best look here that they've had all series in game number 3 with a 4,000 gold lead.
It's kind of tough for Omega Fever because, you know, you want this Senna and Seraphine as hold that.
They're making another play happen. Encore rolls through, but there is the big combination, and the Senna stands no chance. Now 4 versus 3 because Stubby has teleported in. Rupture connects onto 2. I'm not sure if they want this fight, though, because there's still so much DPS available. Stubby is certainly going to drop in this situation. They are going way too aggressive, and OGF is falling under the might of Syndicate Coke in these skirmishes.
Syndicate Coke continuing to grow their lead, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at just before that happened, is like, you want the Senna and Seraphine to be standing with someone, but I think Syndicate Coke has great ultimates to take advantage of the AoE.
Going in with the Cataclysm, but a flash out from the Seraphine will bring into safety. Sailor, though, is not going to be so lucky. They will fall. They're going to get one back. That kill is going to shut down as well to Sailor on this Udyr, but still 10-4 now. A ballooned 6,000 gold lead is so good for the Syndicate Coke side.
And Orange still split pushing in this top side. Stubby has been away from lane for so long that we've already seen one turret drop, a lot of CS missed as well. So, you know, that's where a huge portion of this gold lead is coming from. I think we see 30 CS up on the Ornn, 30 CS up in mid lane, and 20 CS in the bottom lane as well. Syndicate Coke farming up a storm this time around.
Yeah, this is sort of going opposite the way the first 2 games went. Omega Gaming Fever pulled out of the gate really hot these last 2 games, and we're now seeing Syndicate Coke do it, but arguably better. I don't think Omega Gaming Fever had quite this lead in games 1 and game 2. Nearly a 6K, nearly 7K. Oh no, more close to 6K gold lead. Yeah, they're really putting their foot down. They're coming back alive. It's something that you want to see. And it looks like the sort of draft adjustments and the added bans, right? Getting rid of the Tom Kench, potent for their fasting Senna lane. Getting rid of the Aurora, which I thought from after game 1 should have been, you know, taken off the table for the rest of this series. They really are sort of coming into their own here. Excellent Yone play. Solo Mason, who we've been talking about all series, is able to actually shine in a composition where he can perform like the ADC that he is, which is a very talented one. As Espada, a tanky Ornn, is going to be punched up by an Udyr here.
Oh, not again, Espada. We just saw it happen. You should still be maybe okay. Actually, he's got no friends with him. He should be a goner. Espada, it's unfortunate you're caught in 4K in the same series twice. Is eventually going to fall because they are very tanky. Shutdown goes to that Cho'Gath, and the response is going to be the mid lane right now for the side of Syndicate Coke. So if they can get this tier 2, might be actually be more worthwhile for them. But the danger now is a force on a 5 versus 4 fight could be very dangerous. Fate sealed and Cataclysm, though, still available. Naysayer's fishing for something, but Naysayer has walked into the Jarvan. It's a big Encore, but it only lands onto 1. Beat drop falls as well. Pac-a-Paul forces a flash. He's down to half HP, but a flash forward here from Sailor's going to start this fight off. Rupture lands onto 1. Where is that Fate sealed? There it is. It's onto 2, but it's not enough. The backline is still alive here from OTF, flashing over the wall. His Stubby back into the Soul Unbound here for OTF, who's breaking ankles on this Yone, trying to do the damage to take down this Seraphine, but will not be enough to shut down. Will go to the Senna at the very same time that the Dragon spawns. The extended play brings a fight win for OGF.
And despite it being a 4v5, Syndicate Coke chooses to take that fight. That's Pac-a-Paul going in, wall down the Ornn, and they still managed to make it a 2 for 2, which, you know, really says a lot about how strong Syndicate Coke is right now. And even though the Omega Fever has more people on the map, does look like Syndicate Coke will get the Dragon in the end as well.
I think this engaged EQ over the wall without vision was a mistake by Pac-a-Paul, because at this point this fight looks not great, but then OTF decides, oh wait, I'm a god gamer, and then just absolutely rolls face. That was insanely impressive, sort of saving this fight off of the back of what I personally think is a silly mistake on the part of Pakapal's Jarvan there to EQ over the wall, have to burn your own flash. You don't have a good Cataclysm target. You're fighting a 4v5 fight on the back foot. Your teammates aren't there. But then that Fate Sealed absolutely coming in clutch. This is a 4-1-6 Yone. Has the Immortal Shield Bow, has the Blade of the Ruin King. A BF Sword is up, what is that, 30? A little over 30 CS on this Corki. Is just a huge threat. And we get to see that happen right in front of us.
It's the Infinity Edge that's almost complete as well for OTF. A lot of times you see more defensive styled Yone builds, the Stride Breaker, into the Immortal Shield Bow, into things that are a little bit more bruiser style, but not this time. When we see that IE come through, it will be punching time for this Yone, as now Naysayer caught out in the mid lane. They overstayed their welcome. They tried to shove in one too many waves, and that will be the go button now for Syndicate Coke to start this Baron. Sailor's in the area. Sailor does not have flash, so it's going to be very hard to enter this pit. He's recalling. They're just giving this one.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's free.
Syndicate
Pretty
Coke
real
gets
estate.
the Baron. They're going to extend that gold lead to almost 7,000 now, and they have taken control of this game. And we commented a bit on it earlier, but Solo Mason has gone for the AP Varus. Nashor's Tooth was that second item, in fact, and now almost completed a Rabadon's. That might be waiting in base for this Varus. Might need a little bit more farm or a turret pick or something, but once that's reached, this champion can absolutely nuke tanks. The percent health damage that the Blight offers is kind of ridiculous, and that's why you sometimes even see the AP Varus picked up as a top laner, actually. So, you know, for something that's stacking as much health as this Cho'Gath is, I think that pick is going to be really potent. Frozen Spuds has to flash out.
But notably, he nailed the flash. Sorry, that was a joke about his spot. I'm missing it before. It didn't land.
No, I got it. I'm missing it twice.
I'm really curious, Ferris, to hear your thoughts on this AP Varus build. It was sort of a psych out build, right? We didn't see the Halo Blades. We saw the PTA. We saw it start with with Berserker Greaves into, or was it the Static Shiv into Berserker Greaves, which in my head does not scream AP ever, and then followed up by a Nashor's Rabs.
Yeah, I thought, you know, I'm trying to take myself back to the times where I was playing a couple AP Varus games. As we're going to see a Call of the Forge God run through. Valkyrie used to get out of the way here for Kibba but a teleport rolling through. Stubby is now caught in the middle of so many people. That's a massive encore, but just no follow-up here. 3-person Rupture as well. They're trying to take down OTF. Can they do it? They cannot. He gets the shielding from his shield bow. The first 2 kills of the fight go to Syndicate Coke. It feels like it's doomsday now for Omega Fever. They have found their groove. The rust has been shaken off of their shoulders, and they have come here to play. That's 3 down. Syndicate Coke, they are looking to take this third game.
With the lead that Syndicate Coke have, it's so easy for them to start fights. You have so many tools. The Nautilus, the Ornn, and the Jarvan all can just, you know, if someone's even a little bit out of position, they are going to have a bad time. And you see there, you know, Stubby TP's into the middle, and he's tanky on this Cho'Gath, but he goes down fast. Sailor doesn't last long either, and Naysayer at the very end gets caught out. So that's going to be at least 2 turrets.
As well, Dredge line onto Debay. Ignite is dropped. Pakapal going forward, but he has to flash out. He got a little too over-aggressive. The Rupture does connect onto him as well. The Blazing Ram stun will be negated by the Flag and Drag, as Debay almost falls as well to Solo Mason's damage. You cannot count out this AP Varus, and they get the inhibitor, and they get out.
And I noticed that at the very end there, that was actually one of the Void Mites with its last little sliver of health as it's about to time out that autoed the inhibitor down. Just a funny little thing I saw out of the corner of my eye there. And now let's see this replay of this fight.
It's only a solo ult that amounts to nothing, but Stubby is caught out off this TP. And like you said, Ferris, what an encore. However, yeah, the damage in the follow-up just not there. It's a flash-based Udyr. And Senna, Sarah, Corki sort of have to play in the back here as they're being zoned by Pakapal and the Jarvan, who notably didn't have to Cataclysm until right there. They didn't even have to use one of the most pivotal team fight tools on their team there. I think that just goes to show how much of a position they are, like a driver's seat position this team is in, Syndicate Coke, that they can sit on an ultimate like Cataclysm and still completely mop a fight as they're looking to put themselves at soul point with this third dragon.
These
all that
items,
healing, all that healing on this Ocean Drake is with these stacked Ocean Drakes here is completely insane. Working towards that soul, and look at the ornaments rolling through as well. The Sundered Sky is now an ornament here for the J4. The Infinity Edge as well that we were talking about for the Yone is now online. That's a scary sight. Looking at those Yone items at the 28-minute mark, level 16 has access to the rank 3 ultimate, compared to what the Corki is on, which is very baseline economy, has the Muramana, has the Triforce, but can't really contend here. And the AP Varus has been excellent as well, which I did not realize from the static shift for some reason. It should have clued in to me, but I guess I haven't played AP Varus in so long that I didn't quite clue in there. But this game certainly feels, with the 10k lead, Potatoes, it's looking wraps right now for OGF.
I do think AP Varus tends to go for the Nashers into like a Rift Maker or something second more often. So the Shiv is a little different. I guess one thing that's maybe nice about it is, it offers a little more just baseline damage on your auto attacks and a little more wave clear. Funny enough, AP Varus actually tends to lack wave clear quite a bit because you're not getting that bonus AD on your Q and your E. So I guess the Shiv helps out with that. And getting yourself a bit of a damage spread means if they do for some reason get some MR, you're still able to punch through that with the AD. But yeah, that's been interesting to see. It's been far more effective than I would have initially thought.
Yeah, I'm also noticing a point that Ferris, you had brought up in the previous games, lacking heal cut. I'm seeing what I think is just a recently picked up Thornmail come through. We've got a possible Ocean Drake coming in with a Blade of the Ruined King plus a Vamp Scepter Yone. We know that Jarvan with Conqueror on top of the Divine Sundered healing procs has a fair amount of healing and sustain into the kit. Unending Despair on Ornn is going to offer some healing. This is not only a team that is sort of like in the driver's seat, but is set up to have not only just high damage, throughput like burst, DPS, but also just great sustain in these fights. It's a composition that like has so many threat points. And if you're on the side of Omega Gaming Fever, like you gotta be sweating a little bit, realizing that the longer this game goes and the more tools that they have in their disposal, particularly they might get a Baron and then in 250 they might get 4 Ocean Drakes. It's gonna be really, really, really hard to take this team off the board.
They're looking for the fight here to maybe end the game. Somehow that Fate Steel just hit 3 people, but cracking back with the Soul Unbound is OTF and is going to jump right back. Sailor is going to push back the Ornn. They will be okay, but they lose the Baron. And I have to believe now that Syndicate Coke, with this 2 minutes and 40 seconds of this buff available to them, all the money in the world, 3 items on all the people who it matters the most on, are looking for the end of this game right here, right now. And there's not a lot of damage on this OGF comp to say any otherwise.
And I think Syndicate Coke really does want to end pretty soon because as far ahead as they are, that Senna Seraphine still does offer a lot of scaling power as the game goes later. The gold lead is so big that it might not matter. But if you do give Omega Fever a lifeline back into this game by giving over a couple of shutdowns, it might take a while to close out. And by then, they can scale up. But for now, it's the second inhibitor. They're going to rotate their way down towards the bottom lane, try to get the third inhib there. And yeah, in just over a minute, there's also going to be a dragon waiting for them if they can't close the game out by then.
Yeah, I think that's their path to victory, Potatoes. Like you said, they want to end soon. I think they want to utilize this Baron to maximum effectiveness. I think knocking 3 inhibs out and putting Omega Gaming into that 3 inhib down cardboard box opens up the opportunity for them to guarantee the Ocean Soul. We'll see if it gets to the point where they even need it. It is spawning in a minute 15, so I have a feeling that fight will happen if it even is a fight. Omega Gaming Fever might just opt to not contest and take a final base hold. They have 1 inhibitor that has respawned, so it's only the mid lane inhibitor that's down. And the scary part for Fever here is with a Baroned up Syndicate Coke, if they lose all 3 inhibs, they are stuck playing Turtle in base and wave clearing. They don't have the option to contest anything. So we'll see how both teams sort of make their decision for the next 30 seconds based on that information.
If I am taking the approach here for Omega Fever, there's no great options. You are so far behind that everything seems pretty chalked at this point. but you don't want that soul to go down. If the soul goes down, it's pretty much game over. There's literally nothing you can do to stop the immense amount of stats and wealth that the other team has over you from ending that game. And now they're going to get themselves into a fight while OTF is splitting in the top spine. The Call of the Forge God will knock up Stubby. The rest of them are trying to retreat to save their base. The first Nexus Tower will fall. OTF is able to claim that one. Stubby limping away, 1 HP. The Piercing Arrow will not connect to finish him off, and that would be the bot lane inhibitor to fall, along with the second Nexus Tower. It is super Baroned up minions that are sieging this Nexus. The Dredge Line will connect. The fight will start off. Encore onto so many people, but the health bars from Syndicate Coke are just not moving. They stay at full HP. They played with confidence. They made some changes, and it worked out in this game.
Total stylistic changeup, I think, from Syndicate Coke, and it works wonders for them. We've got the Yone showing up in the mid lane with a huge performance for OTF. We've got Solo Mason with the AP Varus in the bottom lane, dealing the most damage in the entire game. And Syndicate Coke just looked like a well-oiled machine that time around.
Absolutely. More than well-oiled, just like perfectly crafted, I think, this comp around what they wanted to do and the changes that they wanted to make sort of synergistically and identity-wise as a team. Solo Mason finally able to get a game where they can actually play like the player that they are, and, you know, showing that in the damage graphs at the end of the game. I think this is the style that Syndicate Coke needs to be playing. You're now putting Omega Gaming Fever into the position where they need to be making the changes in this series, which you never want to be that team, right? You want to be the team in the driver's seat. You want to be the team playing what you know works. And now Omega Gaming Fever has had their series sort of turned on its head. Granted, they're still up 2-1, right? It's still a team that only needs to win one out of the next 2 games to take the championship. And Syndicate Coke still needs to take 2 games in a row to not fall second to Omega Gaming Fever. However, I'd like to point out that this felt like the most dominant showing from any team in a win so far this series.
It absolutely did. And that shows you that the best of 5s are journeys. They're not single instances like the best of 1s. The series adapt as time goes on. For the side of Syndicate Coke, it took them an extra game there to really figure out the Aurora is really powerful. We're having struggles with the Senna Tomken spot. They change it up. They make some substitutions. For whatever reason, those substitutions came through. For the mid lane looked like night and day compared to the previous games. It was just so good for OTF. Now we get to see what Omega Fever do in the situation where they're coming off a loss. What went wrong for them? What do they end up changing to try and bring them a better chance of taking this series in 4? And we will find that out after this very short intermission. The Game 4 draft is on the way. We got a series on our hands. No 3-0s in the grand final of Titan Conqueror. Stay tuned for the continuation of this series.
From side to side, without you by my side, my side, my side, without you by my side. One time from side to side. Peekaboo, I see you, peekaboo, I see you, looking at me, looking at you. Hold up, where you going? What you doing? Who you seeing? What you need? What you want? I said, without you by my side, my side, my side, without you by my side. One time from side to side, without you by my side. I can't go outside, without you by my side. I can't go outside, without you by my side. I can't go outside. One time is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Feel like a dynamite, ready to explode right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight.
We have got a series on our hands between Syndicate Coke and Omega Gaming Fever in the grand finals of the Titan Conqueror League here on this fine Wednesday evening. We got the lovely TriCast if you're just joining us, and we are going to see if Omega Fever can put this series away, or if Syndicate Coke are going to build off of the momentum of their Game 3 victory and take us to Silver Scrapes.
Syndicate Coke struck back really nicely in that last game. They, the first two games looked pretty unwinnable for them, but I think that was our most convincing win of this whole series yet. Playing around a really solid early game. I think in the previous games they kind of had almost a bit of a do nothing and lose problem at times, and this time around, more decisive map movements, picks that can set each other up way more easily, and it worked wonders for them.
Yeah, I really think they turned sort of this series and how the series is felt on its head with that last game. We saw Omega Gaming Fever in games 1 and 2 come out of the gates swinging, come out of the gates dominant, decisive, on the same page as a team. And Potatoes, I know you made the comment after game 1, nerves. It seemed like Syndicate Coke was playing nervous, that they weren't really playing to their own strengths, to each other's strengths as a cohesive unit. And I mean, when you're playing at the top level of your ELO bracket in the finals, you sort of got to be playing to that. And last game, they turned it on. It was the most dominant win we've seen yet. And now Omega Gaming Fever is in a position where they are going to have to make adjustments in this draft as a team and as an synergistic identity for how they're going to make a swing back and take this game back in their favor.
We do see the Tom Kench taken away once again for the side of Syndicate Coke. And Omega Fever, although they had side selection, they decided to go and stay on the red side. So they are feeling like that is their best option for winning this one. Tom Kench, Aurora, the two champions that did so well for Omega Fever in games 1 and 2, again, going to be taken off the board. What I want to see from Omega Fever is a Yone ban, unless they have a better pick into the Yone than the Corki and the low amount of success that it had in that game number 3 into it. Let's see if they actually pull the trigger on that one.
Syndicate Cook banning a lot of the playmaking mids away from Kibaboy, who I think on the Aurora specifically was absolutely instrumental in Omega Fever's wins. On something like the Corki that wants to play a little more passive, farm up, scale up, and that it didn't look like they were able to accomplish as much. So we'll see if that's an adaptation that Omega Fever makes this time around as a Syndicate Coke sticking with the Ornn first pick. It's been very solid for them. It's their most played champion. It's a champion that's banned against them the most, so that's where home is for them. It's going to be responded to with a Poppy now. Flex pick as usual. So it could be taken up into the Ornn or the jungle or support.
Yeah, this draft seems a little bit like Taylor's oldest time. We see, like you said, the Ornn B1 for fourth Espada. We've seen it in every game so far. Poppy, which was played by, I believe, Stubby in the top lane. This could be a support Poppy, though, because we've seen OGF pick their bot lane every series, R1 and R2. We've also seen, if I'm not mistaken, Syndicate has picked their ADC every game on B2. And this might be the switch up. I'm expecting Omega Gaming Fever to pick their top lane here. They've done it every game, likewise, and they seem to put a lot of priority on getting Sailor a second phase pick.
There you go. Volibear locked in. You're really happy about that one, Swifty.
Do you know who my main is?
No clue. Who could it possibly be?
It's Volibear, baby.
What?
I love Volibear.
Are you kidding me?
Volibear.
We're gonna see the Yone band as well. And honestly, let's give you the floor here, Swifty. Talk about your Volibear pick.
So I love Volibear, not to flex, but to flex a little bit. I think I peaked like rank 26 on it. I love this champion. He's flexible in the top lane and the jungle. He has insane sustain and dueling potential. His early gameplay making is so strong. He's got really cool little animation cancels and combos that not many people know about. And the ability to shut off towers is so potent. He's just, I love him as a pick. I think he plays fast, he plays hard, he plays mean, which is how I like to play. I'm curious to see where they put it. So, this is interesting. They've got a three-way flex going on between Maokai, Volibear, and Poppy. Poppy can go top jungle or support. Volibear top jungle, and then top jungle support probably for Maokai as well. So I'm interested to see where they put the Volibear. I think it's played more often top than it is jungle. However, I love seeing it come out. I think it's awesome. If they want to bite back at Syndicate Coke's ability to drive the pace of the game from the beginning, Volibear is absolutely a champion that can do that.
I'm a little bit disappointed, I'll be honest. I was hoping to see, the Lux was banned away in the second round of bans, but I was also maybe hoping to see something of a poke enchanter support like the Karma to come through with the Caitlyn, because the Varus matchup into Caitlyn is only favorable for Varus, in my opinion, when the Varus goes lethality. Then you have that poke to match the range of the Caitlyn. If you go the on-hit build, then she beats you out in that range. It's a much different pick for Debay in the bot side on this. Caitlyn, you are not so much playing for that sort of short trades and the stacks and the scaling. Caitlyn scales very well, but this is a early game laner. Instead, they're going to opt into the Maokai, and we have to talk about the Taric pick here, Potatoes, as well.
I think Taric's interesting here. There's a lot of short-range champions on the side of Omega Fever that the Taric can stun up and continue popping those heals off of. But for the Caitlyn specifically, she does have a pretty significant range advantage. Unless you blow that flash on Taric, I think you're going to have a tough time getting on top of her until maybe once level 6 rolls around and Solo Mason gets that Chains of Corruption online. Then you have a bit more options. But I think this early lane might actually be pretty tough for the side of Syndicate Coke, because Debay has a nice little range advantage, and Maokai can set up the Caitlyn traps really effectively.
I'm very curious to see what the first few levels for both these junglers look like. These are both jungles that can full clear relatively easily, healthily, quickly. We're sort of in a meta where full clearing is kind of the default nowadays, just because of how healthily and quickly everybody can do it. I think it's particularly potent on Volibear because if you have his clear down, you can do it so fast and then get on the map so quickly and start influencing lanes immediately. I also think that this is the first time that we are seeing Pakapal on a jungler that is sort of early game focused, that I think can sort of take fights one-on-one with Sailor's also early game sort of hyperactive pick. So I'm really curious to see how this jungle matchup plays. And on the thoughts of the Tarek pick, I think I'm a big fan holistically of it in terms of their team composition. I think it works really well with your Xin Zhao, with your Orin, with your Orianna. However, in the lane itself, yeah, this might be a little bit rough into the poke dominance and bully that is Caitlyn.
Which is why I would have loved to seen the Karma paired with it as well, or something along those poke lines. Because imagine now you have to deal with both laners being poke oriented. It would be really tough with the low range that they have. We also need to talk about Kimboboy's Syndra, because they now were banning for the side of Syndicate Coke this Syndra every single time. Kimboboy is someone who plays a lot of this champion. Now with the adapt of the Tom Kench ban and the Aurora ban, again, best of fives, things change. The meta inside one series adapts. We're seeing that right here. Kimboboy now gets access to their patented Syndra up against the Orianna, a very tried and true mid lane matchup that we have seen over the years. Can they have as good of a performance on the Aurora like they can on this pick? As we're seeing Sailor getting involved right off the bat, gonna flash down onto that Orianna. They just don't have the damage, but they get that summoner spell off.
And you're pretty happy to trade that flash as Sailor, because there's still plenty of gank setup on the side of Kimboboy. You can easily revisit that lane and threaten a kill. But this phase rush does make the Orianna a lot safer than something like an Aerie or Comet might. And yeah, this is a very classic mid lane matchup. You know, very meta for a while. Not as much recently, maybe, but I think it's quite fun to play dodgeball on both sides of the matchup. And while it's traditional, oh, hold on, Paka Paul looking on Naysayer.
Uh-oh.
Might wrap around for Debay. Lands the wind, becomes lightning. Good flash. They are predicting the flash from the Tarek. Frozen Spuds won't find that stun. Debay gonna be without that summoner spell.
Another flash blow nicely, and just going back to that mid lane, yeah, it's traditionally it is a Syndra favored matchup, but I found that, you know, if you know what you're doing on this Orianna, you can definitely pull out a win. She has a lot of opportunities, you know, especially around that level 6 when you get access to the shockwave, and just if you can make the trades more extended, I think that tends to favor that side of the matchup. So it's playable. It's definitely not a hard counter.
I want to bring back to that early gank. Like we said, blowing flash for flash. I think I said it in one of the previous games, as well as Potatoes. You just noting on it now. Trading the flash for flash always feels good. Excellently done on the part of Sailor's Volibear to burn that flash. It's a really, really potent combo when you charge up the Q for the movement speed, and then you have your stun readily available. You can drop your Sky Splitter, your E, and then when you know it's going to hit and you're within range, you can flash to guarantee the stun and the E coming down. That Orianna's dead if they don't use the flash, and you'll trade the flash for flash any day of the week. Because even with Phase Rush on the Orianna, Volibear's movement speed buff is doubled running towards champions, and it's also reset on CC abilities, hard CC. So you get a free opportunity to just run champs down, sort of uncontested. So I think it's just a really great trade. He pulled off the combo very, very well. And I just like seeing the high tempo gameplay out of a Volibear.
Now the objectives are on the map. I want to bring back the point that I've been making over the course of this series. It's been heavy priority for Omega Gaming Fever on these early dragons. They have a Caitlyn bot lane, a pick that is so good at getting this prio, although right now the bot lane has been hovering around that middle portion of the lane, and it looks like Pakapal wants to potentially make a play here. Naysayer's going in, but that's the wrong time to jump in. The stun is cleansed away from, but a flash forward from Pakapal should secure first blood here for himself. First blood actually goes to the Orianna in the mid lane because they found a solo kill onto Kimboboy, although the tower will bring down the Xin Zhao. It's a 2-for-1. Sailor picks that kill up. We see our first shed of blood in the bot lane.
I'm very curious to see what happened in the mid lane there, because, like, I mean, that's kind of just what I was talking about earlier. You know, Syndra is broadly favored in this matchup, but when you hit that shockwave power spike on Orianna, you can definitely look for a solo kill. So something else that's really crucial there, I think, is you know, this Orianna wants to pick up Merc Treads probably at some point, and yeah, I mean, OTF didn't even have level 6 when that kill comes through. I guess that's just the, you know, the power of the passive and shielding, and probably just some fancy footwork to dodge away from the Syndra skill shots as well. Really well played in the mid lane by OTF. And you know, not to distract too much from the gank in the bottom lane, we saw kind of funny interaction there where I think Naysayer's Bramble Smash on Maokai actually pushed
Yep.
Frozen Spud, it was Frozen Spuds' stun, I think, onto DeBay, which then forced the cleanse, and with no flash, the kill comes through in the end.
A little bit of whose team are you playing for here out of Naysayer? I think an unintended sort of mishap there. But yes, the Maokai Q definitely pushed the stun into DeBay's Caitlyn. I know you're probably going to hear me talk about the jungle matchup just because it's Volibear the whole time, but I'm really glad that we saw... Oh, I made out...
OTF, you're in trouble here. That's going to be the Twisted Advance, the Volibear stun. They're trying to give the kill to Kiba Boy, and they give it to that Syndra. Excellent punish onto the Orianna. Had flash, just didn't have the opportunity to use it.
I think Maokai Volibear is super strong with the lockdown. I love the roams out of Naysayer moving up mid. I was going to say before, I really like the automatic Dragon Take off of the backside of that bot lane play. I think Volibear's Dragon Take is so strong alone, just with the sustain, just has great early damage. And really just, forces sort of trades to be made for Pack-a-Paul. Pack-a-Paul probably would have been moving up to Grubs regardless, but, in a situation where Pack-a-Paul makes a decision to not do that, Volibear all of a sudden takes Dragon, and you're sitting there, what trade do I make? Maybe I'm not in position. So good on Pack-a-Paul to keep up with the tempo there, but also just great by Sailor to really catch a kill off the bot side play and then be able to push that right into an objective. And then the movement with Naysayer. Naysayer, great job there getting a kill for Kiba Boy in return.
I really like the coordination from the side of Omega Fever. That Hex Flash on Maokai over the Raptor Wall, so hard to dodge away from, and they set up some great vision in bot side to enable that play as well.
They absolutely did. Now Solo Mason, level 6 on this Varus, has access to the Chains of Corruption. No cleanser, doesn't have that right now, but no cleanse on DeBay. When you're playing this Caitlyn pick, you do want to keep in mind that a flash dazzle from Frozen Spuds can start a play onto you. The Chains of Corruption can start to play. Without the cleanse, you're in a much more dangerous position, and has actually got Solo Mason and Frozen Spuds priority of this bot lane for the last couple of minutes here. Optimizing as well, or itemizing rather, into the Berserker Greaves first for DeBay, not jumping straight into that flat AD, that serrated Dirk working towards a Collector or a BF sword to an Infinity Edge, or sometimes even a Yuntal Wild Arrows that some Caitlyn's like to build, is definitely relieving a lot of the pressure here onto Solo Mason, who has been performing so well on this Varus in this series, is having a really solid start to the game, despite being in that really tough matchup against the Caitlyn.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness.
Solo kill in the top lane. I was gonna say, look at the power of this Maokai. He can he's getting vision of Pack-a-Paul in the bot lane bush at the same time that he's looking for a gank mid. But really heads up play from OTF, having the ball over the wall in his own Raptor pit to see that. Now there's a fight happening in bot lane.
Through, it is rooted up onto the Taric. Cosmic Radiance is going to go down. He will be immune. Does have flash to try and to escape. He's going to make his way to the wall, but the Twisted Advance is going to root him up, give the kill to DeBay. That is what you want. 2 kills onto their carries now, both the Syndra and the Caitlyn, and they find one there inside of the brush.
Oh, I think that Maokai volley is just so good. The CC lockdown from so far away. Like we said before, having that Twisted Advance, right, on top of the Maokai ultimate, which gives Maokai movement speed towards any rooted enemies, but also the Q on Volibear gives him movement speed towards enemies. There's the ability to take a pick in a fight from so far away for this team, as we're seeing. Oh, that was very close. Up on the top side.
If Espada didn't level up there, that would have been a trade kill for Poppy.
Yeah.
But good punish on the overextension. Look at this bot dive that they're looking for Omega Fever.
They do
Volibear
have
has
Stormbringer
ultimate.
available. They're going to turn off that tower. Nothing Frozen Spuds can do. No Cosmic Radiance. And they will grab that one, punishing the support here from Syndicate Coke once again. And they may not be done just yet. Solo
Round
Mason now
2.
going to get cut off from his escape with that Yordle Snap Trap. Excellent placement from DeBay. He's got nowhere to go. And the kill will go to the Volibear. Naysayer will not fall either. Excellent plays. The coordination from the support ADC jungle of OGF is making things happen in game 4.
Excellent coordination. That dive played really well, juggling the aggro, using multiple ways to drop aggro, turn off the turret, and abuse the long range that the Caitlyn has. There's a fight in the mid lane now.
Comes through onto Kiba Boy. I think we might have missed Orianna falling. Did Orianna have 2 deaths before? There's 2 kills on the Syndra now.
Yeah, there
think
was
we-
a kill mid.
We did miss. Yeah, here it is.
Oh, just a really well-timed stun into an ultimate. Yep, I mean, that's just clean play.
Yeah, and that's why those Merc Treads are so important for the Orianna in this matchup, because, you know, if you have those, especially when the stun is thrown at max range at least, it actually gives you time to, like, get out of the way of the follow-up with the W and the Q, and maybe even, you know, get your Phase Rush proc off and return some fire onto the Syndra. So those are completed now for OTF in the mid lane. I don't think they were before, but Omega Fever gonna grab the second dragon of the game here, and they've got themselves a nice little 2,000 gold lead at the 12-minute mark. Ooh, good try on the steal, but not quite enough damage to take that away.
Yeah, just the
Solar
statics
Mason.
here we go.
Pack-a-Ball's been caught out, goes into the Crescent Guard though, so is going to be alive. Naysayer now, good flash to get away from the Audacious Charge, but nice knock-up with the 3 Talon Strike from Pack-a-Ball. Wind Becomes Lightning lands as well, so the slow does connect onto Sailor, but they're looking for the turn right here with the Nature's Grasp. It's going to find the route onto the Zinzao. There's the Scatter of the Weak, there's the Unleashed Power. Kiba Boy, Syndra, this is why Syndicate Coke was so afraid of it. That is 3 kills now in the mid lane.
And it was looking good there for Syndicate Coke for a moment, but they get 2 flashes done, but I think they overextend a little bit. Syndra has time to get that stun CD back up, and they nicely jukes.
Debay. Oh my goodness, Debay! You're making me so proud as a good Caitlyn player. That is beautiful! Look at the Yordle snap traps! Oh my goodness, play of the series for me. That was beautiful. Breaking ankles, snapping them with that trap. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, really, really well done there. And to blow the ultimate and get the kill off before the Taric Cosmic Radiance. Is that the name of the ability, by the way? I believe it's that.
I think that's correct, yeah.
Yes, it is. That, I mean, just to blow that summoner, that key, not summoner spell, excuse me, that key ability, that ultimate, just feels so good. And to pick up a kill on the backside. Pack-a-Ball might be in danger again as the Volley Bear is going in.
They're looking for him. Good Scatter the Weak from Kiba Boy. The pressure that OGF is applying is so immense. They're looking for a bot lane dive as well. They're forcing the TP off of Espada, but it's Debay that has to be careful. Does have Flash, does have Cleanse. Here comes the Call of the Forge God. It will connect onto the Maokai. The Searing Charge as well is enough to find the knock-up. Naysayer is going to try and get onto this Mars. One more auto attack might do the trick from Debay, but it will not be enough. The Dazzle Stun comes through, and Solar Mason will grab a kill. Espada keeping their bot lane safe.
Ooh, that's a much-needed kill for the side of Syndicate Coke, but this game feels like it is still pretty firmly in Omega Fever's hands. They are playing with a lot of aggression in the jungle there. You see them find the kill onto Pac-a-Paul, and and on the bot side simultaneously, almost finding another kill, even though they are outnumbered.
Yeah, I think this Volley Bear pick is being utilized just so well by Sailor. I'm just so proud and impressed by this pick. I think it's exactly what you want to see out of a bear, particularly when we have a 304 bear on the board. When you're ahead as Volley Bear, you can control on your lonesome just the state of the jungle matchup and pressure, right? And how fast you want things to go. Invading the jungle, Volley Bear will beat Zinzao. It's a matchup that's good for Volley Bear in a straight 1v1, but then having a Maokai roaming with you as well, having that Syndra who also just pairs super well with Volley, like I think it's just really well done. They understand what the champs do together, and they're utilizing that to just amazing effect, in my opinion. I want to note, and I'm curious on your guys' opinions. Take a look at Volley Bear's build.
That's the classic Rod of Ages into
Rod of Ages, Navori, baby.
Navori, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the Zeal does build into the Navori Flicker Blade. Yeah, that build is crazy. It's been making waves for a really long time. And Volley Bear is OP as hell of a duelist. I'm sure you played that build a million times, Swifty.
Oh, it's my go-to. I think it's the best one, yeah. So Volley Bear is one of those champions akin to like a Shyvana, where you can sort of build any item you want and like you'll be fine. He can go AP, he can go on hit, he can go tank, he can go just bruiser with the Sundered Sky, as he's just going in here on Spuds. They might need to back out because they're overextended a little bit, but I personally think Roa is the most effective of all of them.
They're jumping right on in. Here. Stormbringer is massive. Here comes the Cosmic Radiance as well. It's going to keep the team of Syndicate Coke immune for the moment, but Naysayer with the Bramble Smash able to displace a whole lot of them. Kimba Boy trying to do the damage, but that was an excellent disengage from the Taric. It will get one kill to the side of Syndicate Coke. That one goes on to OTF 27. It's Sailor and the rest of the OGF gang. They're trying to make these plays, but this time Syndicate Coke, they're prepared.
They're prepared, but they still are losing some pressure in the middle lane. Kiba Boy still has that ult as well, so these low health members, they might drop. Okay, Kibaway has to flash away from the gank, but yeah, having that ult up when the Syndra is this fed is makes trying to dive at low HP a pretty scary prospect.
Yeah, for sure. We did see the bot lane go down from Debay. Debay's Caitlyn right before that sort of fight happened. I like the pressure being applied from Omega Me Fever in the enemy jungle. We saw that sort of really potent trio move together, the Volley, Maokai, Syndra. However, I think that the result of that play just speaks to the power of Taric Ultimate. It's one of the best ultimates in the game. Completely can change fights, turn them on its head. We are, however, going to see the dragon started up here by Sailor. The Rod of Ages is nearly fully online. The Navori Flickerbades is coming online. Interestingly enough, Volibear's passive, the damage scales with ability power, as well as the attack speed per stack for those 5 stacks. Volibear quickly is going to be an attack speed nightmare, which is just why it's so good with the Flicker Blade, because it resets all of your cooldowns. I will note, however, I actually don't like the treads here. I understand that there's fair amounts of CC on this team. However, I think Volibear's Q means that treads are just less effective on him because he gets that reset from it. And I do really like Lucidity Boots on the bear. I think it allows you to just keep chomping, keep Wing, right? And then keep stunning and keep Eing for longer in fights. But we'll see how this treads is utilized. If he's playing it very, sort of divey into a team where he's going to be the only one CC, then treads is going to be effective here.
I think it kind of
could
makes
be in
sense.
trouble. Oh, Chains of Corruption does connect, and we're going to see Nature's Grasp come down as well. But that's going to be the end of that play. I wanted to make the point about AP Varus again in this game for Solo Mason. Last time they were the solo AP, they did the most damage in the game. It made a whole lot of sense. This time you have Ornn, you have Orianna. It is now Xin Zhao that is that full that solo AD here for Syndicate Coke. Part of the reason why maybe the Merc Treads itemization did end up coming through over those Lucidity Boots, which you do praise here, Swifty, for Sailor. They're using the Rift Herald to knock down the tier 2. There's not a lot of people to stop this from happening. OTF can't do anything about it. Let's see, though. They're walking down. Maybe a play will happen.
Naysayer could be in a little bit of danger, but the team's there to back them up. And now there's a teleport coming in the middle of them. Kibaboy needs to be the target.
Jumping right in. Kibaboy lands the Scout of the Week. They got the Cosmic Radiance, though. He's in a little bit of trouble, but they just don't have the damage to finish him off. Naysayer is in the middle of Thor. At the same time, so is Frozen Spuds. The supports are caught in a position, but here comes the Call of Forge God, the Keeper's Verdict from the Poppy. Will not land on anyone, and the Shockwave is going to hit onto so many people. Low health bars for both teams. Debay trying to kite away from this Ornn, does have flash. Good utilization of that to get away and minimizing the losses here. OGF once again, they find themselves in an unfortunate situation in the enemy jungle.
Syndicate Coke gets the 2-for-1, and they really needed that fight. I feel like Omega Fever has been slowly just building up a massive lead. And yeah, just anything you can get, because a lot of these kills for the side of Syndicate Coke have been onto Naysayer, so finding someone else like Kibaboy, who's got a big shutdown, is yeah, exactly what they need here. But they're still not able to convert too much off of it. There's
flash forward. Naysayers looking for this. Not able to find the Bramble Smash. Still going to use the Nature's Grasp. Takes so many tower shots. That ultimate, not going to get a lot of value. But they are playing with a huge sense of urgency here.
They were able to get the Flash Cleanse, though, notably. I will agree with you. I don't think the value was well utilized on the ultimate. It was sort of used after the Flash Cleanse. It's probably a much better play if you just take the Flash Cleanse, right, with your Twisted Advance. You still have the Hex Flash on Maokai, which we all know is just a really effective summoner spell to utilize, so you'll always take the Flash trade there.
Yeah, and I think Syndicate Coke needs to find more Orianna ults like that. It's been kind of difficult for them this game because they don't have someone who's exactly an ideal ball delivery system. Yes, the Xin Zhao can dash in, but his ultimate also knocks people away, so there's a lot of risk of anti-synergy there. You know, Taric isn't exactly the most mobile, Ornn also not that mobile, so yeah, they have setup. These other champions have setup for the ball, but it's not as free as something like, I don't know, a Nocturne or a Jarvan that can really guarantee you a multi-person ultimate to get those teamfight wins.
We have to start talking about this soul now. It will be a 23-minute soul for OGF if they can grab this right here, right now. This is a situation that Syndicate Coke has been in before in this series, and it's really scary. They have to mount some type of offense now. They have to be able to find a fight that's good for them. Otherwise, this will once again be that Chemtech soul going into the hands of OGF. Big items on both Syndra and the Caitlyn, as it is going to be OTF to knock down that tier 1, get a little bit of gold in, but the Infinity Edge is finished. We also see a Cosmic Drive on the Syndra as well. Very unorthodox build here with the Blackfire Torch, something that I haven't seen before, but still waiting on that Nashor's Tooth on Solo Mason, waiting for those 2 items, could be detrimental here in the fight.
A lot of people on Syndicate Coke still don't have that second item, whereas Omega Fever does. I think if a fight happens right now, it's definitely going to be favored for that red team here. But Syndicate Coke is advancing, taking space, and clearing out some of this vision.
Yeah,
but
they seem to have really good setup here, Potatoes. I think they're comfortable, Omega Gaming Fever, sort of letting Syndicate Coke walk up here. I don't know if they necessarily need to force engage this fight, but they don't want to move too far back that they can't actually do anything about this dragon, as they're slowly kind of getting out of position here.
Look at Naysayer.
Looking for a flank ultimate, which could spell doom for
Here
Coke.
it comes. This would be so insane. Look at the value of that. Is going to be so good, but here comes the Cosmic Radiance. They've knocked down the Orn, though the shutdown is going to go over to Keepa Boy, but this Volley Bear is down as well. That's the jungle down from OGF. Paca-Paul is no long for this world. Solo Mason trying to do his very best to kite away, but there is the Twisted Advance. There is the lockdown. OGF get the shutdown under their 80 KD on OTF is going to be next. Triple kill to DeBay. He wants that championship trophy. They want that soul, and they're going to get it.
Nice of Syndicate Coke to pick up the shutdown onto Sailor, but other than that, it's all Omega Fever in this fight. They don't need the jungler to finish this off. There's no way Tarek can go for that steal, and the zone control that this Caitlyn and Syndra are offering, along with the Maokai, I think is what's winning them these fights at the end of the day. You know, they have so many ways to find a route onto someone with the Maokai and follow it up with a ton of burst. From the Syndra, from the Caitlyn, lots of CC. I think it's very hard for Syndicate Coke to continue playing these fights, especially now that Chemtech Soul has been locked down.
Absolutely, it's going to be really, really tough. I think a lot of these champions utilize it very well. Interestingly enough, the thing I noticed most about that last fight, as we're going to go into this replay here, is we obviously could tell what Naysayer was doing, right? In that this Maokai ultimate's coming from the side, but you notice here, as soon as it hits, Sailor lines up for a giant ultimate that doesn't actually do anything because the Cosmic Radiance has come down and he gets deleted. But this tells you how far ahead Omega Gaming Fever is. Volibear basically did nothing that fight, and they still are able to just mop absolutely everybody. And Volibear is one of their key components at this point in the game. Volibear go 304 into that fight. I think Omega Gaming Fever has a lot of tools to be successful as another Maokai ultimate comes out.
From through. Frozen Spuds is the target, but they do not have Cosmic Radiance. He's going to be in some trouble. Dazzle is going to connect onto Keepa Boy, but there is no follow-up. The Syndra is going to march forward. The Audacious Charge is canceled by the Steadfast Presence. Now pushing forward is the side of OGF. Very low is Naysayer. He will drop to the wind, becomes Lightning. We're seeing fights on a whole bunch of different fronts, and OGF is the ones that are winning out on multiple of them. All of them, I would say. Solo Mason soon to fall to Sailor. He cuts him down. The play will continue. In the mid lane, it's OTF and Espada trying to stay alive. An aggressive flash from DeBay is going to bring him low, but not enough to drop him. The jungler is down. 3 people are down from the side of Syndicate Coke, and the Baron is live.
Oh, I think OTF had a ball that could have hit a 5-man ult there, but held onto it and it only hits the Maokai, and that's just really unfortunate. I don't know if it would have changed how that fight goes because Omega Fever is, you know, they have such a strong team composition. They have that Chemtech Soul, but it's, yeah, now that's going to be Baron off of yet another big engage onto Frozen Spuds, who didn't have the Cosmic Radiance. Has it up now, but that team fight is long past, and Omega Fever has blown the game completely open, up 8,000 gold now. They've got the Baron buff, and they might even be able to look to close the game out soon.
It's off the back of actually an engage onto Naysayer, interestingly enough, and they just get full collapsed on. Frozen Spud's taken super low, trying to do anything that they can, but can't get it done. It's then Paca-Paul's left down on the outside. Sailor's just running house on this Volibear in the backline. That's what I love so much about this build on this champion is the sustain is absolutely crazy, and then powered up with the Chemtech Drake, and now what I believe off of this fight was the Spirit Visage buy. It's just so hard to take down this champion if you don't have, 3 or 4 focused damage sources onto it. And they just played that fight and that re-engage really, really well.
Dire straits for Syndicate Coke. Their season is very much in jeopardy right now. It is a 8,000 gold lead for Omega Gaming Fever. They can taste that championship. They are so close. They just have to lock it in here, find a couple more fights like they have been getting, play it smart, and it should be theirs. But it is going to be Syndicate Coke to try and say otherwise. But getting caught out on the Taric right here is not going to be a good way to start. Stormbringer forward. The Chains of Corruption are going to connect, but it's not going to be enough to Bay with the ace in the hole is godlike. And that will be the support of Syndicate Coke once again falling. The base is now cracked. Bot lane inhibitor tower has been taken. The siege will continue onto the inhibitor. And Syndicate Coke, they are getting everything that they need.
It's it feels like this game might be coming to a close soon. The Cosmic Radiance was held onto there, maybe to see if they can find another opportunity before this game ends, where it might get more value than just prolonging your life only for you to die a few seconds later. As now Pakapal is in danger mid lane.
They're looking for the dive between towers. So aggressive here from OGF, but the damage from the Caitlyn, the Syndra, the Volibear, it is immense. It is overwhelming. A shockwave onto 2. The piercing arrow can't quite take down Naysayer, and that will be enough to at least push back the onslaught of Omega Gaming Fever for the moment. And fellas, in a minute 30 time, maybe an opening for Syndicate Coke on this Elder Drake.
Yeah, if Elder's coming up, you are sweating if you're Syndicate Coke. This is a team that's already, like we said, this is 11k gold almost behind at this point in the game at 28 minutes. It's certainly not completely unwinnable, but whatever gap you have to find your way back into this game is so narrow you could barely squeeze through it. So they've got to play the next few minutes, really the next minute, near perfectly if they want a chance to play a game 5, take us to Silver Scrapes. Otherwise, that may be all she wrote for Syndicate Coke.
Yeah, and I think it's going to really take a misstep from Omega Fever as much as it's going to take a good play from Syndicate Coke. If Omega doesn't give them that opportunity, I really don't know if there's much that Syndicate Coke can do to start a fight on their terms. As Sailor's wrapping around in the jungle on Frozen Spuds here.
He's found Frozen Spuds. There is Cosmic Radiance available. The question is, when is this Taric going to use it? That answer is going to be now. It's going to connect onto 3, and Frozen Spuds will stay alive for the moment. Tanking up in the front line is Stubby. The flash away will bring the Taric to safety, but Sailor wants to continue this play with the Stormbringer at the very least. They will take down the mid lane tower, and Siege will continue onto this inhibitor, but backing away because there is a very powerful objective that is now live onto the map.
Elder is coming up, and I think it's going to be really tough for Syndicate Coke to contest this. They have to walk through multiple warded bushes, control warded bushes,
and they're getting fight right here, right now. The trap was laid. The Keeper's verdict actually knocks them to safety. Maybe they could have continued forward, but Pakapal, 1 HP, has to recall at this point while they're starting the Elder.
I think Stubby just wanted to pad the stats a little bit there with that Poppy ultimate. That would have to be my justification there, as they've still got a few members on the side looking for this fight, and they're so ahead that they can sort of just take it, as they're going to simultaneously finish off the Elder Dragon, and the fight is looking like it's about to start.
It's already started off, and there's 1 dead, there's 2 dead. They're dropping like flies. The most powerful buff in League of Legends has been acquired here for Omega Gaming Fever in this series deciding fight, in this league deciding game. Omega Gaming Fever now with 1 objective in their mind, with 1 prize ahead of them, that being the trophy. They were not expected to get this far. They were not expected to be this successful, this dominant, this much of a statement team in the playoffs, but they shut up all the haters, and through all the trials and tribulations, Omega Gaming Fever will be your Fall 2024 Titan Conqueror League champions.
What
Did it with Volibear, baby! Let's go!
I think, really controlled and just good play all around from Omega Fever in that last game. We said game number 3 was maybe the most decisive win we had seen this series. Well, I think game 4 was even more decisive. I think Omega drafted a comp that was easy to execute on. You've got targeted CC with Maokai, Poppy, and the Volley Bear, and all of that can be followed up with tons of damage from the Syndra and Caitlyn, who just did their job in the team fights, dealing all that damage, zoning the enemy champions away, peeling for themselves along with the help of their team, and it looked unplayable at times for Syndicate Coke in that last one.
Yeah, they had a really, really tough time finding any means to respond. I think Omega Gaming Fever drafted a composition that was set up really well to control the pace of the game. They did so, and then they just steamrolled it. And when you're playing a composition that's maybe a little bit more reactive with like that Taric ultimate and a little bit of like disjointed synergy, I could say. Potatoes, you brought this up before with the Oriana and the ball delivery not necessarily being super clean. It just means that there's less options and less clean ways for them to respond. And ultimately, that's all she wrote for Syndicate Coke, is they couldn't quite find exactly what they needed to pull this series to a victory.
You have to give credit to Syndicate Coke, even though they fell here in this final game. Still such a very impressive season. The most dominant team in Group A dominant run through the playoffs up to this point. They got all the way to the grand final and faced a very strong Omega Fever team. And honestly, it's really surprising to say Omega Fever, they were not a team people expected to get this far. They really came alive in the playoffs. They had a close series against probably one of Conqueror's favorites in DOV Knights. They pulled it through. They had a whole bunch of different people fielding in and out of their roster. People that need to be mentioned, like Evo Zara, Metal as well, playing games for them. They were all a part of this journey to this championship. So a shout out to all those players. And to wrap up here, who are we giving our MVPs to for this series? We'll start with you, Potatoes. Who is the best performing player you feel and the most impactful on OGF?
It's always a tough call when talking about these after the fact, but to me, I'd have to give it to Sailor. I think Sailor was super consistent in the wins and even in the loss, still put up decent numbers. But I think especially in that last game was a huge driving force forward. And going back to those MVP awards, to those all Conqueror awards, Sailor was the only member of Omega Fever, I think, that was on that list, and it shows they just played around that jungler really, really well. I think when you've got someone who's kind of the star of the team like that, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Potatoes. I think the shining star on this team for this series, I'd like to think they all played very, very well. I think Kiba Boy's Aurora was disgusting, to put it lightly. Just super game warping. I thought, Debase Caitlyn game the last game, Naysayer with the Maokai. I think Stubby was a rock in the top lane, much like Espada was for Syndicate Coke, excuse me. But to me, Sailor stands above the rest in the sense that Sailor, I think, picked up so much weight for that team being able to be as successful as they were. I thought game 1 that they had a team that wasn't necessarily going to be able to convert very early in the game, and we saw them go up early in the game. And my opinion is that a lot of that was off the back of Sailor. I thought Sailor completely tore apart, a lot of Syndicate Coke's plans in this game and really, really, really stepped up to the plate. So for me, it's got to be Sailor in the jungle.
I'm going to have to agree with both of you as well. Sailor, I echo everything that you guys were saying. An absolute beast in the jungle, applying so much pressure, being the player that Omega Fever needed. I'm also seeing in the chat as well, we got some chat votes. Sailor MVP, Sailor Series MVP for sure. So I guess we'll give that little, caster award over to Sailor, but all of Omega Fever playing so well. Syndicate Coke as well, doing a fantastic job to get this far. And that's going to wrap up Titan Conqueror Fall 2024. So now that it's all over, I want to give the big thanks, of course, to all of the people who are watching. It's been a fantastic ride. So many teams were showcased, so many fantastic games. Myself, Potatoes, Swifty, all covering it throughout. Our fantastic producers behind the scenes as well for this specific broadcast. We got Chris and Wookie Monster doing all the lovely observing, making sure that we see all of that action. So shout out to those two behind the scenes. Shout out to all of you who were watching. And things to look forward to for the next split in Conqueror. Now it can be OGF to rejoice and celebrate and we will be back for a brand new season when that time comes, and we'll be excited to bring that to you in the future. So thank you to everyone who was watching in the stream. This will be us signing out, and we hope to see you all very soon. Have a fantastic rest of your holiday season, and good night.
We did it.
Am I still alone? Since you left me, nothing has been the same. There's no time for regret, but I remember how I slept in your chest. I want to forget it, take a breath and leave you away, away. But it's not that easy, 'cause you make me miss you again, again. If you want, just come. If you want, just come.